My husband died and left me only one item in his will, a password, locked cell phone. My children laughed at me as they took over the $50 million company, the mansion, and all the luxury cars. Humiliated and alone, I tried everything to unlock it for months. On my 70th birthday, at the stroke of midnight, the phone unlocked itself and began to ring. A familiar voice cut through the silence of my small, empty apartment. "Happy birthday, my love. You finally made it to 70. Now the real game begins." What Arthur said next made me drop the phone. My hands were trembling so much that the device fell onto the threadbare carpet, but his voice kept coming from the speaker, revealing secrets that would change everything I thought I knew about my life, my marriage, and the true legacy he had built in the shadows. But to understand how I got to that moment, I have to go back 3 months. 3 months to the exact day of Arthur's funeral, when my perfect world crumbled like a sandcastle in the tide. Arthur died on a Tuesday afternoon. A massive heart attack in his office, surrounded by architectural blueprints and unsigned contracts. He was 68 years old, but he worked like he was 30. His secretary found him slumped over the walnut desk I had given him for our 20th anniversary. She called an ambulance, but it was too late. His heart had stopped beating 15 minutes before anyone opened that door. 15 minutes in which my husband died alone, without my hand holding his, without my voice telling him everything would be okay. That guilt ate at me more than the pain of his absence. The Brazilian mahogany casket was still open at the funeral home when Michael, my oldest son, already had his phone pressed to his ear, coordinating a meeting with the lawyers. He did not even wait for them to close the lid. Caroline was reviewing documents on her tablet, sitting in the front row, wearing that black silk dress that cost more than $5,000. Her dry eyes never once looked toward her father's body. Daniel, the youngest, at least pretended to be sad, but I knew him too well after 35 years. That boy never had an opinion of his own. He was always his sibling's shadow, nodding at whatever they decided. I was sitting alone in the second row. Alone. After 45 years of marriage, no one sat next to me. The floral wreaths filled the room with that sickly sweet smell that turned my stomach. White roses, lilies, gardenias. Arthur hated flowers. He said they were a waste of money for something that would be dead in 3 days. But there they were, hundreds of them, sent by business partners who never really knew him, who never saw him make coffee at 5 o'clock in the morning or stay up all night when the children had a fever. 45 years. And no one sat with me. Mr. Evans, the family lawyer, arrived just as the ceremony began. He was a tall, thin man with silver hair combed back and a leather briefcase that seemed to hold all the secrets of the universe. He leaned in to whisper something to Michael. I saw my son's eyes light up. That greedy glint I knew so well. The same glint he had as a boy when he found coins in the sofa. But this was not about coins. It was about an empire. The ceremony lasted 30 minutes exactly. The pastor spoke of an Arthur I barely recognized. A charitable, generous man, loved by all. Hollow words that floated in the funeral home's air conditioning. No one mentioned that Arthur spent 18 hours a day working. No one said he built his real estate empire from scratch, that he came to this country with $200 in his pocket and a dream bigger than the hunger he felt. No one spoke of the man who collapsed over construction plans because his heart could not take one more minute of pressure. No one spoke of the real man. When it was over, Michael was the first to leave. He did not even approach the casket for a final goodbye. The reading of the will was 2 days later. Mr. Evans summoned us to his 22nd floor office in a glass building in the financial district. The walls were a pale cream color, decorated with framed diplomas and photographs of Mr. Evans shaking hands with politicians and businessmen. The conference table was so polished I could see my reflection in it. I looked old, tired, small. Michael sat at the head of the table as if he already owned the place. Caroline was on his right, checking her phone. Daniel on his left, nervous, drumming his fingers on the wood. I was at the end, as far from the lawyer as possible, as if my presence were an uncomfortable detail no one wanted to face. Mr. Evans opened his briefcase and took out several documents. The sound of paper against paper filled the tense silence. He cleared his throat. He adjusted his glasses. and he began to read in that monotone voice lawyers use to dehumanize even the most painful decisions. I, Arthur Morgan, being of sound mind, declare this document as my last will and testament. Each word fell like a drop of acid on my chest. To my son Michael, I bequeath 40% of the shares of Morgan Properties, including all projects under development in California, Nevada, and Arizona. Michael smiled, a predatory smile that made me nauseous. To my daughter Caroline, I bequeath 30% of the shares, along with the main mansion in Beverly Hills and all its contents. Caroline simply nodded, as if confirming a bank transaction. To my son Daniel, I bequeath the remaining 20% of the shares, plus the classic car collection and the vacation property in Cabo. Daniel exhaled, relieved. 3 children, 90% of a $50 million empire divided among them. I waited. My hands were sweating in my lap. The silence stretched like sticky gum. Mr. Evans turned the page. He avoided my gaze. To my wife, Eleanor. The world stopped. I could hear my own heart pounding against my ribs. I bequeath my personal cell phone, kept in the safe in my private office, with specific instructions that it not be tampered with or forced open under any circumstances. Silence. Then laughter. Michael was the first, a dry, cruel laugh that bounced off the glass walls. Caroline covered her mouth, but her shoulders were shaking. Even Daniel, my baby, the one I used to rock when he had nightmares, let out an uncomfortable chuckle. A phone. Michael wiped imaginary tears from his eyes. Dad had a sense of humor to the very end. He worked himself into a heart attack, and the only thing he leaves Mom is an old cell phone. This has to be some kind of mistake. Caroline looked at Mr. Evans, incredulous. Mom gets just a phone while we get the entire empire. Mr. Evans maintained that neutral expression lawyer's perfect with years of practice. The will is clear and was drafted by Mr. Morgan 3 weeks before his passing. It was verified by 3 independent witnesses. There is no mistake. It's pathetic. Michael leaned back in his chair, arms crossed over his puffed-up, arrogant chest. 45 years of marriage, and he leaves you a phone that probably does not even work. Something inside me broke in that moment. It was not a loud, dramatic break. It was silent, like when a fine crack appears in old porcelain and you know it will never be the same. That's everything. My voice sounded strange, distant, as if it were coming from someone else. Mr. Evans nodded. There is one additional clause. Mrs. Morgan is permitted to remain in the mansion for 30 days. After that, she must vacate the property. 30 days. 45 years, reduced to 30 days. Caroline was already calculating. We can speed that up. Mom does not need that much space anyway. We can find her a small apartment somewhere reasonable. Reasonable. The word made me laugh. A bitter laugh that surprised even me. Reasonable like giving up my career to raise you? Reasonable like the nights I spent awake when you had the flu? Reasonable like the birthdays, the graduations, every sacrifice I made while your father built his empire? Do not be dramatic, Mom. Michael was putting papers in his briefcase. Dad made his decision. He obviously had his reasons. Maybe you should ask yourself what you did to deserve just a phone. Those words pierced me like a rusty knife. Mr. Evans handed me a small key for the safe in Mr. Morgan's private office. The phone is in there. I took it. It weighed almost nothing, but in that moment, it felt like I was carrying the weight of my entire failed life. My children left that office arguing about numbers, percentages, expansion plans. Not one of them looked back at me. I stayed seated, staring at that tiny key in my wrinkled palm, wondering how an entire life could fit into such a small object. I went to get the phone that same afternoon. Arthur's office was exactly as he had left it the day he died. The blueprints still spread across the walnut desk, a half-finished cup of coffee next to the computer mouse, the scent of leather and pipe tobacco clinging to the burgundy curtains. Everything was frozen in time, as if he were about to walk in at any moment, adjusting his tie and asking me what I was doing there, interrupting his work. The safe was built into the wall behind a huge painting, an abstract piece in orange and gray tones that I always hated but that Arthur insisted was a valuable investment. I moved the heavy frame aside. My hands trembled as I inserted the key into the lock. The mechanism made a soft, delicate click, completely disproportionate to the weight of what I was about to discover. Inside was a single object, a cell phone, an old model, the kind no one uses anymore, with a small screen and physical buttons. It was turned off. I took it out carefully, as if it were a fragile relic or a bomb about to explode. The plastic was cold against my skin. It was heavier than I expected. I found the power button and pressed it. The screen flickered. The brand logo appeared. Then, a background image, a photograph of us from our wedding day. Me at 25 years old, in an ivory dress, flowers in my hair, smiling as if the whole world belonged to me. Arthur beside me, so young, so full of dreams, we did not yet know if would come true. We looked happy, so stupidly happy. Then the lock screen appeared. Enter password. 6 empty circles, waiting for numbers I did not know. I tried the obvious first. Our anniversary date, 030879, error. The screen shook, rejecting my attempt. I tried his birthday, 150456. Error again. Michael's birthday. Error. Caroline's. Error. Daniel's. Error after error after error. After 10 failed attempts, a warning appeared in red letters. Too many incorrect attempts. Try again in 30 minutes. I sank into Arthur's leather chair, that enormous piece of furniture where he spent hours signing contracts and making decisions that moved millions. It still smelled like him. Like that expensive cologne he wore, mixed with the scent of old papers and ambition. I held the phone against my chest and, for the first time since his death, I truly cried. I did not cry at the funeral. I did not cry at the will reading. But there, alone in his office, surrounded by his things, with that stupid phone in my hands, I fell apart. The tears fell, hot and bitter, soaking my cream-colored blouse. I cried for the 45 years. I cried for the woman I had been, the brilliant architect who gave up her career to be a wife and mother. I cried for every family dinner where my children barely looked at me. I cried because my husband died alone in this office, his heart exploding from pressure, and I was not there to hold his hand. And I cried because part of me was furious with him, furious because he left me this humiliation, this cruel riddle. Why not just leave me something normal? Money? A property? A letter explaining why he hated me so much? But not a locked phone. As if even after death, Arthur was still playing his games of control. I spent the next 30 minutes searching his office for clues. I checked every desk drawer. I found bank statements, construction contracts, old photographs of finished projects. In the bottom right drawer, there was a box of Cuban cigars he never opened and a bottle of 30-year-old whiskey he saved for special celebrations. Nothing that looked like a password. Nothing that explained why this phone was my only inheritance. When the 30 minutes were up, I tried again. The date we met. Error. The street number of our first house. Error. The last 6 digits of his social security number. Error. Too many incorrect attempts. Try again in 60 minutes. The waiting time was doubling each time. It was a security system designed to thwart hacking attempts or to torture desperate widows. I left the office as it got dark. The 30 days I had to vacate the mansion were slipping away fast. Michael had already sent an appraiser to value the furniture. Caroline had hired an interior designer to redecorate her new house. Daniel simply avoided looking at me. That coward. That night, lying in the king-sized bed I had shared with Arthur for 45 years, I tried the phone again. I tried combinations of numbers that had personal meaning. The number of my old architecture firm. Error. The address of the first property Arthur bought. Error. The year Michael was born. Error. Too many incorrect attempts. Try again in 120 minutes. 2 hours. The phone was punishing me for my ignorance. The days dragged on like slow torture. During the day, I watched my children dismantle the life Arthur and I had built. Michael sold 3 of his father's classic cars in the first week. Caroline hired a moving company to catalog and pack everything of value. Daniel settled into the Cabo property and posted pictures on social media, drinking cocktails by the infinity pool. At night, I tried to decipher the phone. I tried numerical sequences, historical dates Arthur used to mention. Lucky numbers. zip codes of places we lived. Nothing worked. The wait time increased exponentially. 4 hours, 8 hours, 16 hours. The phone was becoming inaccessible. In the third week, Michael walked into my bedroom without knocking. I was sitting on the bed, the phone in my hands, dried tears on my cheeks, still messing with that thing. His voice dripped with contempt. "Mom, it's pathetic. It's an old phone. Dad probably left it there forgotten years ago, and the lawyer thought it was important. Your father never forgot anything." My voice was hoarse from so much silent crying. "Whatever." Michael shrugged. "We need to talk about your situation. The 30 days are up in a week. Caroline found an apartment for you. 1 bedroom, bathroom, kitchenette. It's small, but enough for 1 person. 1 bedroom. It's all you need. You're not going to have visitors. Your friends stopped calling years ago because you never had time for them. You were too busy being the perfect wife." The cruelty in his voice was like venom. "The apartment costs $900 a month. We'll pay the first 6 months. After that, you'll have to figure it out." Figure it out? I'm 66 years old. I have not worked in 45 years. How am I supposed to figure it out? Not my problem, Mom. Dad made his decisions. Maybe you should have been a better wife. Michael left the room, leaving those words stuck in my chest like rusted daggers. That night, I tried the phone again. My fingers trembled over the numbers. There were almost no logical combinations left to try. I entered my birthday. I was 66, turning 67 in 3 months. Incorrect password. Too many attempts. Device will be locked for 30 days. 30 days. The same amount of time I had to leave my home. The phone shut down completely. The screen went black, dead, unresponsive to any button. I shook it. Desperate. I tried to turn it on again. Nothing. Arthur had left me an impossible puzzle, and now I could not even keep trying to solve it. The move was humiliating. 2 men in gray uniforms packed my few belongings into cardboard boxes. Clothes. Some books. Photographs that no one else wanted. Everything fit in the back of an old van. 45 years of life reduced to 8 boxes. Caroline personally supervised to make sure I did not take anything of value. She checked every box, every bag, as if I were a thief in my own home. It's just protocol, Mom. Do not be offended. Do not be offended. As if humiliation were optional. The apartment was exactly as Michael had described it. A room with worn-out beige walls, a window that looked out onto a dirty alleyway, a bathroom so small the toilet and shower barely fit. The kitchenette consisted of a 2-burner electric stove and a refrigerator that made unsettling noises every 20 minutes. The men left the boxes in the middle of the room and left. I sat on the thin mattress that came with the rental. Arthur's phone was in my purse, still off. Still locked. Still mocking me. Outside, the city lived its normal life. Cars passed. People laughed. The world kept spinning while mine had stopped completely. I took out the phone and looked at it. The black screen reflected my face. I looked old. Destroyed. Defeated. "What did you want me to find, Arthur?" I asked the dead device. "Why did you do this to me?" Silence was its only answer. The days in that apartment turned into a routine of survival and obsession. Every morning I woke up on that thin mattress that creaked with every move, staring at the water-stained ceiling, wondering how I had ended up here. The woman I once was, the brilliant architect who designed buildings, who had dreams bigger than the sky, had disappeared so long ago I could not even remember her face. The phone remained on the makeshift nightstand, an overturned wooden crate I found in the building's trash. It was still off. Dead. It had been locked for 2 weeks, and I counted every hour that passed until the 30 days were up, and I could try again. The money Michael promised arrived only once. $600 deposited into my account with a handwritten note. "We reduced the amount. We feel you spend too much. $600 for rent, food, utilities, medicine. My blood pressure required pills that cost $80 a month. I decided to skip doses to make them last longer. I ate once a day. Cheap bread from the discount supermarket. Sometimes a piece of cheese when it was on sale. Hunger became my constant companion. That dull ache in my stomach that you eventually get used to ignoring. I lost weight. My clothes hung loosely on my bones. When I looked in the bathroom mirror, I saw a stranger. A ghost of a woman who used to be me. My children did not call. Not once. I tried to reach Michael in the third week. I dialed his number from the payphone on the corner because I could no longer afford a cell phone. His secretary answered with that professional, cold voice. "Mr. Morgan is in an important meeting. I'm his mother. It's urgent. He will return your call when he has time." He never returned the call. I tried Caroline. Her phone rang 6 times before going to voicemail. "Hi. You've reached Caroline Morgan. Leave your message after the tone." She did not even bother to include a warm greeting. I left a message. Then another. Then another. Absolute silence. Daniel was the only one who responded, but only with a text message. "Mom, I need space. What's happening is complicated for me too. Please understand." Space. He had a mansion in Cabo, and I had 200 square feet of desperation. The nights were worse. The building was full of noises that kept me awake. Couples fighting in the apartment above. Loud music from the hallway, constant sirens in the street. And me, lying in the dark, holding that dead phone against my chest as if it were the only thing connecting me to reality. I talked to it. To Arthur. To the phone. To both. Why did you hate me so much? What did I do to deserve this? I gave up everything for you. My career. My dreams. My friends. I became the wife you needed, the mother your children needed. I erased myself so all of you could shine. And this is what I get. The phone never answered, but I kept talking. I turned 67 in that apartment. No one remembered. Not a call. Not a text. Not a word. I spent the day sitting by the window, looking at the dirty alley, eating dry bread, counting the hours until the phone might unlock again. When the 30 days were finally over, my hands were trembling so much I could barely hold the device. I pressed the power button. The screen flickered. The logo appeared. Then the picture of our wedding. And finally, the lock screen. Enter password. 6 empty circles, waiting for me. This time I was more careful, more strategic. I had spent 30 days thinking, remembering, analyzing every significant moment of our life together. I had a list written in an old notebook, all the possible combinations I had not yet tried. I started with the date Arthur arrived in this country. Error. The number of his first rented apartment. Error. The date he opened his first bank account. Error. Every error was a stab. But I continued. I had to continue. Because if I gave up, then everything had been for nothing. My entire life had been for nothing. I tried the date Arthur proposed to me. We were in a cheap Italian restaurant. He did not have money for a ring yet, but he asked me anyway. I said yes, without hesitation. Error. I tried the day we bought our first house. A small property in a forgotten neighborhood, but it was ours. Error. Too many incorrect attempts. Try again in 30 minutes. 30 minutes that felt like 30 years. When I could try again, something in my strategy changed. I stopped thinking about happy dates. I started thinking about painful dates. Arthur was not a sentimental man. He was pragmatic. Tough. Built by suffering. I tried the date his father died. Arthur was 15. He never talked much about it, but I knew it had marked him deeply. Error. The date we lost our first business. We almost filed for bankruptcy. Arthur did not sleep for weeks. Error. The date his mother was deported. He could not do anything to stop it. He was 19 and felt completely powerless. Error. Too many incorrect attempts. Try again in 60 minutes. This was becoming an endless nightmare. Every failed attempt sank me deeper into despair. I started to wonder if Arthur had simply chosen a random password. Something meaningless. Just random numbers to torture me forever. But no, Arthur never did anything without a purpose. Every decision he made in his life had a calculated reason behind it. This phone was no different. There was an answer. I just had to find it. 2 more months passed. The money from Michael stopped coming completely. I called the office again. This time, not even the secretary answered. Just a machine with automated options that led me in an endless circle. I left desperate messages. Please. Nothing. I started selling my things. First, the clothes that no longer fit because of the weight loss. Then, the books, the framed photographs, everything that had any value, however minimal. A thrift store gave me a few dollars for each load. It was not enough. It was never enough. But it kept me alive one more day. The landlord knocked on my door on the morning of the 3rd month. He was a heavy-set man, with breath like beer and eyes that showed no compassion. "Mrs. Morgan, you owe 2 months' rent. I know. My children promised to pay. But I do not care about your children. I need the money, or you'll have to leave. Please, I just need a little more time. 2 weeks. If you do not pay, I'm kicking you out." He closed the door, leaving the ultimatum hanging in the air like a death sentence. 2 weeks. $1,800 that I did not have and no way to get. That night, sitting on the mattress, my stomach empty and my heart even emptier, I held the phone in my hands. I was not even trying to unlock it anymore. I just stared at it, looking for answers in its dark screen. "Arthur, if there's any part of you still in this world, I need you to give me a sign. Anything. Because I cannot do this anymore. I'm breaking. I'm not strong anymore. I'm nothing." The phone remained silent. But then, something changed. A strange sensation like electricity in the air. I looked at the screen. It was still off. But something was different. I could not explain it. It was as if the object in my hands had come alive for a second. I turned it on again. The familiar routine. Logo. Photograph. Lock screen. This time I did not think. I did not calculate. I just let my fingers move on instinct. Numbers that came from somewhere deep in my memory. A place I did not know existed. 082325. The screen flickered. My heart stopped. The circles filled with green. The phone unlocked. The screen lit up with an almost blinding brightness in the darkness of my miserable apartment. My hands trembled so much I almost dropped the phone. After months of failed attempts, of accumulated frustration, of nights crying in silence, I had finally unlocked the device Arthur left me as my only inheritance. Our anniversary, August 23rd, and my age, when we got married, 25. It was so obvious and so hidden at the same time. Arthur always said I was the most beautiful woman in the world on our wedding day. He held that date as if it were sacred. And I, stupidly, had only tried the date without thinking to add my age from that moment. The home screen appeared. There were no normal apps. No social media, no games. Just 3 icons in the center of the black screen, a folder called For Eleanor, a calendar with one date marked in red, and a voice recorder app. My fingers hovered over the screen, not daring to touch anything. My heart was beating so hard I could feel it in my ears. What had Arthur left in here? Why all this mystery? Why torture me for months before revealing whatever this contained? I touched the folder first. It opened to show a list of numbered files. File 1, File 2, File 3. They went all the way to File 15. Each one was a considerable size, probably documents or photographs. I opened the first file. It was a scanned document, a property deed. I read the first line and my breath stopped. Property registered in the name of Eleanor Morgan. An address in San Diego, a 4-story commercial building in a premium downtown area. Estimated value, $3,200,000. And it was in my name. It had been in my name for the last 8 years. My eyes scanned the document, unable to process what I was seeing. Arthur's signature was there, along with notary seals, dates, everything legitimate. This was not a joke or a mistake. It was real. I opened the second file with trembling fingers. Another property deed, this time an apartment complex in Portland. 24 rented units. In my name. Value, $2,800,000. The third file, an industrial warehouse in Las Vegas. $1,400,000. In my name. Fourth file. Fifth. Sixth. I kept opening documents like a woman possessed, properties all along the West Coast. Buildings, land, investments, all registered in my name, all with impeccable legal documentation, all worth millions. When I finished reviewing all 15 files, my hands were shaking so badly I had to drop the phone onto the mattress. The numbers danced in my head. I added them up mentally, though I could barely think straight. $42 million. $42 million in properties I never knew existed, all legally mine, hidden for years in records I never checked because I trusted Arthur implicitly to handle the finances. The world was spinning around me. The walls of the miserable apartment seemed to be closing in. The air became thick, hard to breathe. This could not be real. It was too much. It was impossible. But there were the documents. Scanned, signed, real. Arthur had left me a secret empire. While my children were fighting over their $50 million, I had $42 million hidden in properties that no one else knew about. And according to the documents, all these properties were generating income. Rents, profits, money that had been flowing into a bank account I also did not know I had. I exited the folder and touched the calendar icon. It opened to show a single marked day, October 18th. My 70th birthday. It was exactly 3 weeks away. There was a note attached. Everything will be revealed on this date. Wait, my love, wait. 3 weeks. Arthur wanted me to wait 3 more weeks before revealing everything. But why? What else was there? He had already left me a fortune. What else could there be? I touched the third icon. The voice recorder. There was a single recording saved. Duration, 43 minutes. Date of recording. 2 weeks before Arthur died. 2 weeks before his heart exploded in that office, surrounded by blueprints and contracts. My finger hovered over the play button. A part of me wanted to press it immediately, to hear his voice again, to understand what the hell was going on, but another part was afraid, a deep primal fear of what that recording might contain. The tears started to fall before I could stop them. They were not tears of sadness. They were tears of confusion, of anger, of relief, of 1,000 contradictory emotions hitting me all at once. Why did you not tell me anything? I spoke to the phone as if Arthur could hear me. Why did you let me suffer? Why did you put me through all this? But I knew Arthur. I knew how he thought, how he planned, how every move he made had 10 calculated steps ahead. This was not pointless cruelty. It was a test, or a lesson, or both. I wiped my tears with the back of my hand. I took a deep breath, and I pressed the play button. Static. Then a clearing of the throat, and then his voice, as clear as if he were sitting next to me. Hello, Eleanor. If you are listening to this, it means I managed to keep this plan secret until the end. It means I died without telling you anything. And it means you have been through the hell I designed specifically for you. His tone was calm, serene, like when he explained business contracts or financial decisions. I know you are furious with me right now. You have every right to be. I left you a locked phone while our children got everything visible. I made you look like the fool, the forgotten one, the one who was worthless. And worse, I let them humiliate you. I let them kick you out of your own home. I let you go hungry and cold in some horrible place. A pause. I could hear his heavy breathing on the recording. I'm sorry, my love. I'm sorry for every second of pain I caused you. But I needed it to happen exactly like this. I needed our children to show who they truly are when they think they have won everything. I needed the world to see them without their masks. And more importantly, I needed you to see yourself without me. My hand covered my mouth. The tears were falling silently. For 45 years, you were my wife, my partner, the mother of my children. But somewhere along the way, you forgot who you were before you were all of that. You forgot the brilliant architect, the woman with her own dreams. You became my shadow, and I allowed it because it was easier for me, more convenient. His voice broke, slightly. This phone is not just an inheritance, Eleanor. It is your liberation. The documents you found are real. The money is yours. It always was. I built that parallel empire using your name, because I knew that one day you would need to be independent. I knew our children would become greedy monsters. I watched them grow up and refused to see it clearly. That was my greatest failure as a father. The recording continued. Every word was a hammer striking my heart. In 3 weeks, you will turn 70. On that day, this phone will unlock the rest of the plan. But for now, I want you to know something. You are not alone. You never were. And what comes next will change everything. Static. End of recording. I sat in the darkness, the phone still in my hands, processing what I had just heard. I did not sleep that night. I could not. I stayed sitting on that thin mattress, holding the phone as if it were a sacred object, replaying Arthur's recording over and over until I had memorized every word, every pause, every breath. His voice filled the empty apartment, making it feel less lonely, less miserable. But it also filled my head with 1,000 questions that still had no answers. What else had he planned? What would happen on my 70th birthday? Why wait so long? He had already given me the properties. He had already given me a fortune I did not even know existed. What else could there be? When the sun began to filter through the dirty window, illuminating the cracks in the walls, I made a decision. I would not tell my children anything. Not yet. Arthur had designed this as a test, as a calculated revelation. If he had waited until my birthday to reveal everything, then I would wait too. I wanted to see just how far their greed would go, how far they were willing to sink me before the truth came out. The next few days were strange. I was still the same poor woman living in that awful apartment, eating cheap bread, counting pennies. But now, there was a secret burning inside me, a knowledge that changed everything. I walked the streets feeling as if I had an invisible superpower. People looked at me and just saw a forgotten old woman. They did not know I owned buildings, properties, a hidden empire. The landlord knocked on my door again. His knocks were aggressive, impatient. "Mrs. Morgan, time's up. Either you pay now, or I'm kicking you out today." I opened the door just a crack. He smelled of alcohol and stale sweat. "I need 2 more days. Please. I already gave you 2 weeks. No more extensions. 2 days. I'm begging you." Something in my voice, maybe the genuine desperation, made him hesitate. He snorted in frustration. 2 days, not 1 more. And you better have the full amount, or I'm calling the police to drag you out. He left, cursing under his breath. I closed the door and leaned against it. 2 days. My birthday was in 19 days. Still too long, but I had documents proving I owned $42 million in properties. Technically, I could go to a bank, show the papers, access the accounts. But something stopped me. Arthur's voice on that recording. "Wait, my love. Wait." I decided to try one last time with my children. Maybe, just maybe, there was some humanity left in them. I took the bus to Michael's office. The ride took an hour and a half, crossing the city from my forgotten neighborhood to the glittering financial district where my oldest son played at being an important executive. The building where he worked was all glass and steel. Imposing. Cold. The lobby had marble floors so polished I could see my reflection. I looked small. Insignificant. The receptionist stopped me before I could even get near the elevators. "Do you have an appointment?" "I'm Michael Morgan's mother. I need to see him." She looked me up and down, evaluating my worn clothes, my old shoes, my tired face. Her expression shifted to something between pity and contempt. "Mr. Morgan is in meetings all day. I can leave him a message. Please, just 5 minutes. It's urgent. I'm sorry, ma'am. Without an appointment, I cannot let you go up." Her tone was final, inflexible. I just stood there like a fool, feeling the stares of the people walking by. Executives in expensive suits. Women in heels that clicked like hammers against the marble. All of them busy. All of them important. And me, an old woman in their way. I waited in the lobby for 3 hours, sitting on a bench near the entrance, watching people come and go. The receptionist threw me occasional, annoyed glances, as if my presence were contaminating the elegant atmosphere. Finally, Michael came out of the elevator. He was with 2 other men in gray suits, laughing about something one of them had said. I stood up quickly, almost tripping over my own feet. "Michael." He stopped. The smile vanished from his face, replaced by something close to embarrassment. But it only lasted a second. Then came the irritation. "Mom, what are you doing here? I need to talk to you. It's important." The men with him exchanged uncomfortable looks. Michael gestured to them. "Go on ahead. I'll catch up with you at the restaurant." He waited until they were gone. Then he looked at me with those cold eyes that were once the innocent eyes of my baby. "You have 2 minutes. Talk. They're going to evict me from the apartment. I do not have money for the rent. I need help. We gave you money at the beginning. It was not enough. It's barely enough to eat. And you all stopped sending more, because we felt you needed to learn how to manage your money." His voice was condescending, as if talking to a foolish child. "Michael, I'm your mother. How can you leave me on the street? Dad made his decisions. He knew what he was doing. If he left you just a phone, it was for a reason. That phone?" I stopped. I almost said it. I almost revealed everything right there. But something held me back. The way he was looking at me. Like I was a problem he needed to solve quickly so he could get back to his important life. "That phone is all I have left of him." "Exactly. So keep it as a memento and move on. Get a job. I do not know, clean houses or something. You're 67 years old, not 100. You can still be useful." Every word was a slap. But the worst part was his expression. Indifferent. Bored. As if this conversation were a waste of time he could be using to make more money. "Is that all I'm worth to you? After everything I did for you all? Oh, Mom. Always so dramatic. You did what mothers are supposed to do. No one asked you to be a martyr." He checked his expensive watch. "I have to go. Good luck with your situation." He turned and walked toward the glass door. He did not look back. Not once. I stood in that lobby like a pillar of salt. The receptionist was watching me with a mix of pity and relief that I was finally leaving. The tears wanted to come, but I swallowed them. Not here. Not in front of all these people. I left the building and walked aimlessly for hours. My feet hurt, but I did not care. The physical pain was easier to handle than the ache in my chest. That enormous void where my children's love used to be. When I got back to the apartment, it was already dark. I found a note taped to my door. It was from the landlord. "Final notice. Pay tomorrow or I will be forced to take legal action." I sat on the floor in the hallway, my back against the door, holding that note. Arthur's phone was in my purse. I took it out and looked at the screen. The calendar still showed that marked date. October 18th. It was still 18 days away. "Arthur, I do not know if I can wait that long," I whispered to the phone. "I do not know if I'm as strong as you thought I was." But then I remembered something from the recording, something I had overlooked in my first listen. Arthur had said, "You are not alone. You never were." What did that mean? I was completely alone. My children had abandoned me. I had no friends because I had neglected them for years to take care of my family. I had no one, unless Arthur had left something else. Someone else. I went back into the apartment and opened the phone. I checked every icon, every folder, looking for something I had missed, and then I saw it. In the bottom corner of the screen, almost invisible, a contacts icon. I opened it. There was a single number saved, no name, just a number with a California area code. My finger hovered over the call button. Should I do it? Who was this person? Why had Arthur left only this contact? I took a deep breath. I pressed call. The phone rang 3 times. 4. 5. I thought no one would answer. But then, a man's voice, older, warm. "Hello, Eleanor. I've been waiting for your call." My voice got stuck in my throat. This man on the other end of the line knew my name. He had been waiting for me, but I had no idea who he was. Who is this? I finally managed to articulate, my fingers gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. "My name is Antonio Garcia. I was Arthur's best friend for 40 years. I am also his personal attorney, different from Mr. Evans, who handled the family's corporate affairs." His voice was gentle, patient, as if he perfectly understood my confusion. "Arthur asked me to wait for your call. He told me it would come exactly when you needed it most. I do not understand any of this. I know, and I am deeply sorry for what you have been going through." Arthur told me the whole plan. At first I thought he was crazy, that it was too cruel to make you suffer like this. But he insisted. He said it was the only way for you to wake up. Wake up from what? From 45 years of being invisible, of being someone else's shadow, of forgetting who you were. Antonio paused. You found the property documents. Yes, I still cannot believe they're real. They are completely real and legal. Every one of those properties has been generating income for years. The money has been accumulating in a special account in your name. There is currently about $6,300,000 in cash available, in addition to the value of the properties. My legs gave out. I had to sit on the mattress before I fell. 6 millions. In cash. Available. While I was about to be kicked onto the street for not being able to pay $1,800. Why did Arthur not tell me anything? Why let me suffer like this? Because he knew you better than anyone, Eleanor. He knew that if he told you while he was alive, you would insist that money be used for the children, for the family, for anyone but yourself. You were always like that, always putting yourself last. He was right. Antonio was completely right. If Arthur had told me he had that secret empire, I would have insisted it be given to Michael, to Caroline, to Daniel. I never would have considered that I deserved something for myself. What am I supposed to do now? For now, nothing. Arthur was very specific about that. He wants you to wait until your birthday. Everything will be fully revealed then. There is more than what you have seen so far. More? What more could there be? I cannot tell you. Arthur made me swear not to interfere with his plan, but I can help you with your immediate situation. I understand you are about to be evicted. Tomorrow. If I do not pay tomorrow, they're kicking me out. That is not going to happen. I am transferring $10,000 to you tonight. Use it to pay the back rent and have something to live on until your birthday. The money is coming from your own account. It is not charity, it is yours. I do not know what to say. Do not say anything. Just hold on a little longer. It's only 17 days. Arthur was right about many things, but especially about you. You are stronger than you think. His voice softened. One more thing, Eleanor. Your children know nothing about this. Mr. Evans, the other lawyer, does not either. Arthur compartmentalized everything so no one could ruin the plan. When your birthday arrives, everyone is going to be in for a surprise. Especially my children. Especially them. I could hear a smile in his voice. Take care, Eleanor. And do not hesitate to call if you need anything. That number will always be available for you. The call ended. I stared at the phone, processing everything. Arthur had planned this with surgical precision. Every detail, every moment of suffering had a purpose. And although part of me was still furious with him for putting me through this, another part was beginning to understand. He had set me free. In his own twisted, complicated way, he had given me the chance to see myself without him, without my children, without anyone else defining me. That night, for the first time in months, I ate a decent meal. I used the last few dollars I had to buy chicken, rice, and vegetables. I cooked on that tiny electric stove, and the aroma filled the apartment, making it feel almost like a home. While I ate, I checked my phone constantly, waiting for the transfer Antonio had promised. It arrived at 11 o'clock at night. A bank notification lit up the screen. Deposit received. $10,000. I stared at those numbers until my eyes filled with tears. They were not tears of sadness. They were tears of relief, of hope, of something I had not felt in so long. I had almost forgotten what it felt like. The next morning, I went straight to the landlord's office. It was on the first floor, a small room that smelled of cigarettes and old files. He was sitting behind a messy desk, surprised to see me. Mrs. Morgan, I'm here to collect or to call. I placed an envelope on his desk. Inside was $2,000 in cash. I had withdrawn it early that morning from an ATM. Here is the back rent plus next month, all in cash. He opened the envelope, counted the money twice, looking at me with a mixture of surprise and suspicion. Where did you get this? That is not your problem. We're settled. Yes, we're settled. He was still looking at me as if I had done something illegal. I walked out of that office with my head held high. For the first time in months, I did not have to humiliate myself. I did not have to beg. I had money. I had power. Even though I still lived in that awful apartment, even though I still wore old clothes, there was something different inside me. a spark that had been extinguished for far too long. The next few days passed in a strange haze. I was still the same Eleanor on the outside, but inside, something fundamental had changed. I walked the streets and saw the world differently. I no longer felt like a victim. I felt like someone biding her time. I tried contacting Caroline again. This time, to my surprise, she answered. Mom. Her voice sounded annoyed, as if I had interrupted something important. Caroline, I just wanted to know how you are. Busy. The mansion needs a complete remodel. The designer says everything is outdated. We're going to spend about $500,000 on renovations. $500,000. The amount would have paralyzed me days ago. Now I just felt a bitter laugh rising in my throat. That sounds expensive. It's an investment. Anyway, why were you calling? I just wanted to hear your voice. It's been months since we talked. Well, we've talked. I have to go. The designer is waiting. With no goodbye, she hung up. I stared at the phone. Not one question about how I was. Not a second of genuine interest. Caroline was so consumed by her new wealth that she had completely forgotten her mother existed. Daniel had not called either. Michael was still ignoring my messages. All three were too busy enjoying their inheritance to remember the woman who gave them life. But I was not angry anymore. I was at peace. Because I knew something they did not. And in 17 days, everything would change. I spent that time preparing myself mentally. I reread the property documents. I listened to Arthur's recording. I spoke with Antonio occasionally, who gave me updates on how the properties were generating more income each month. I also started taking better care of myself. I ate 3 meals a day. I slept better. I even bought new clothes, nothing extravagant, but clean and dignified. The change was subtle, but significant. And every night, before going to sleep, I looked at the calendar on Arthur's phone. 17 days, then 16, 15, 14, counting down to the revelation that would change everything. The days dragged on with painful slowness, but at the same time, they flew by. Every morning I woke up with a mix of anticipation and terror. What would happen when my birthday arrived? What else had Arthur planned? The uncertainty gnawed at me, but it also kept me alive in a way I had not experienced in decades. 10 days before my birthday, I received an unexpected call. It was not from Antonio. It was from Mr. Evans, the family's corporate lawyer. My heart sped up. Had he discovered something? Had Arthur's plan leaked? Mrs. Morgan, I need to see you. It's urgent. His voice sounded tense, almost nervous. About what? I would prefer to discuss it in person. Can you come to my office tomorrow at 2 o'clock in the afternoon? I had no way to refuse without raising suspicion. I'll be there. I barely slept that night. My mind created 1,000 different scenarios. Maybe Michael had discovered the properties. Maybe Mr. Evans had found some irregularity in the will. Maybe Arthur's entire plan was about to fall apart before its conclusion. I arrived at Mr. Evans's office 15 minutes early. I was wearing one of my new dresses, a dark gray color, simple but respectable. The same receptionist who had seen me months ago, broken and desperate, now looked at me differently. She still did not know I had a fortune, but something in my posture, in the way I walked, had changed. Mr. Evans had me come in immediately. His office was the same, cream-colored walls, framed diplomas, that polished table where the will that changed my life had been read. But this time, he was not alone. Michael was there. So were Caroline and Daniel. All three were sitting in the same chairs they had occupied on that terrible day. And they were all looking at me with expressions I could not quite decipher. Worry? Guilt? Fear? Sit down, Mom. Michael pointed to the empty chair at the end of the table, the same place where they had humiliated me months ago. I sat down slowly, keeping my expression neutral. My heart was pounding like a war drum, but I was not going to let them see it. Mr. Evans cleared his throat, adjusted his glasses, and spoke in that professional tone he used to mask discomfort. Mrs. Morgan, I've called you here because a complicated situation has arisen. Over the past few weeks, we have been auditing the finances of Morgan Properties as part of the transition process, and we have discovered certain irregularities. Irregularities. I kept my voice calm. Depths. Michael interjected, his face tense. Massive debts that Dad hid in the corporate structure. Loans with sky-high interest rates. Projects that are losing money. Contracts with penalty clauses that are destroying us. Caroline looked pale, her hands trembling slightly. We are in serious trouble, Mom. The company we thought was worth $50 million actually owes nearly $40 million. We are on the verge of bankruptcy. A heavy silence filled the office. I processed this information with a mixture of shock and growing understanding. Arthur had done this. He had structured his visible empire as a trap, a beautiful, golden trap that was now closing in on my children. Why are you telling me this? I asked finally. Mr. Evans exchanged glances with my children before continuing. Because legally, you are still part of the Morgan family, and there may be certain assets in your name that could help resolve this crisis. There it was, the real reason for this meeting. They were desperate and thought I might have something of value hidden somewhere. I have nothing, I said simply. You were there when the will was read. I received a phone. That's all. That phone. Michael leaned forward. Did you manage to unlock it? My mind worked quickly. I could lie. I could say no. But something in me wanted to see how far they would go. I wanted to see if there was any spark of real humanity, or if this was all just financial panic disguised as family concern. Yes, I unlocked it. The three of them tensed visibly. Mr. Evans leaned forward, anxiously. And what was inside? Old photographs, voicemails, memories. It was not entirely a lie. Those things were there too. I just had not mentioned them. Nothing of monetary value. The disappointment on their faces was palpable. Michael leaned back in his chair, running his hands through his hair in frustration. This is a disaster. Dad left us a rotten empire. Why would he do something like that? Because he wanted to teach you a lesson, I thought. Because he wanted to show you that greed has consequences. Because you became exactly the kind of people he despised. But I did not say any of that. I just sat there, watching them fall apart. Caroline started to cry. Not delicate, pretty tears. Ugly, desperate tears from someone watching her perfect world collapse. I'm going to lose the mansion. The designer already spent $200,000 on renovations, and now I cannot pay him. He's going to sue me. Daniel looked sick, his skin a greenish hue. I sold 2 of the classic cars for way too little because I needed cash fast. Now I find out those cars were collateral for a loan. I'm in serious legal trouble. I observed all 3 of them. My children, the people I grew up loving, and I felt nothing. Not joy in their suffering, but not compassion either. Just a void where a mother's unconditional love used to be. I'm sorry for you, I said, and it was genuine. I was sorry. I was sorry they had reached this point. I was sorry Arthur had to teach them in this brutal way, but I do not know how I can help. Could you talk to Mr. Evans? Michael now sounded almost pleading. See if there's any way to reclaim a part of the inheritance. Something Dad might have overlooked. Anything. After 45 years of marriage, your father left me a phone. Do you really think he overlooked anything? I let the irony hang in the air. You received everything. I received nothing. Those were his decisions. But you were his wife. And you are his children, I interrupted. If he wanted to punish me with nothing, what makes you think he did not want to punish you with debts? The silence that followed was uncomfortable, tense. Mr. Evans coughed nervously. There is another option. The 3 of you could file for corporate bankruptcy. You would lose the company, the properties, everything. But you could start over. Start over? Caroline almost shouted. With what? We have nothing without Dad's money. None of us has ever really worked in our lives. And there it was. The naked, ugly truth. My children were parasites. Beautiful, educated, well-dressed, but parasites nonetheless. Arthur had given them everything, and they never learned to build anything for themselves. I stood up. If there is nothing else, I'd like to leave. Mom, wait. Daniel stood up too. For the first time in months, he was really looking at me. Not through me, but directly into my eyes. I'm sorry. For everything. For how we treated you. For kicking you out of the house. For everything. It was an apology. Finally. But it came late. It came only when they needed something. It was not genuine. It was convenient. It's okay, Daniel. I lied. It was not okay. Nothing was okay. I hope you find a solution. I left that office feeling strangely light. I had faced my children. I had seen their desperation. And I had not given in. I had not revealed anything. Arthur would be proud. On the bus back to my apartment, I looked out the window at the city passing by. Tall buildings, busy people, life happening in all directions. And me, sitting there with a secret that would change everything in 9 days. 9 days until my 70th birthday. 9 days until the truth came out. 9 days until Arthur had the last word. The last 9 days were a sweet agony. Every hour that passed brought me closer to the final revelation, but it also increased my anxiety. What else had Arthur planned? He had already given me a fortune. He had already exposed our children for who they really were. What else could there be? Antonio called 3 days before my birthday. His voice sounded different, more serious, more formal. Eleanor, I need you to come to my office on your birthday, at 9 o'clock in the morning, sharp. What's going to happen? Everything will be revealed then. Arthur left very specific instructions. I have also invited your children and Mr. Evans. Everyone needs to be present. My stomach twisted. Do they know what the meeting is for? They only know it's about pending matters of Arthur's estate. They have no idea what's really coming. He paused. Eleanor, prepare yourself. What is about to happen will change everything. Not just for you, but for everyone. The call ended, leaving me with more questions than answers. I spent those 3 days in a constant state of nervousness. I cleaned the apartment obsessively, even though it was already clean. I reread the property documents. I listened to Arthur's recording, searching for clues I might have missed. The night before my birthday, I could not sleep. I stayed awake, looking at the ceiling, listening to the building's nighttime sounds. Someone was arguing in the apartment above. A baby was crying down the hall. Life went on as normal for everyone but me. At 5 o'clock in the morning, I gave up and got up. I took a shower with water that alternated between lukewarm and ice cold because the heater was unpredictable. I dressed carefully. I had bought a dark green suit with some of the money Antonio had given me. It was not luxurious, but it was elegant, appropriate. I looked in the mirror and almost did not recognize the woman looking back at me. She was no longer the destroyed widow from 3 months ago. There was something different in my eyes. Determination. Strength. Something that had been dormant for 45 years and was finally waking up. I arrived at Antonio's office at 8:40. The building was different from Mr. Evans's. Older, with exposed brick and wood-framed windows. Antonio's office was on the 3rd floor. An older secretary greeted me with a genuine smile. Mrs. Morgan, Mr. Garcia is waiting for you. She led me down a hallway with wooden floors that creaked under our steps. Antonio's office was cozy, filled with books, with a dark mahogany desk and worn leather armchairs that looked like they had been there for decades. Antonio stood up when I entered. He was a man in his 70s, with completely white hair, kind eyes behind gold-rimmed glasses, and a smile that radiated warmth. Eleanor. He took my hands gently. Happy birthday. Thank you. My voice came out shaky. Sit down. The others will be here soon. But before they arrive, I want to give you something. He took a thick envelope from his desk and handed it to me. It was sealed with red wax, an old-fashioned detail that was very much like Arthur. What is this? A letter. Arthur wrote it for you to read today, before the meeting. Take your time. He left me alone in the office. My hands trembled as I broke the seal. Inside were several pages, handwritten in Arthur's angular script. I would recognize that handwriting anywhere. My dearest Eleanor, if you are reading this, it means you survived. I knew you would. You are so much stronger than you ever gave yourself credit for. These last few months have been hell for you. I designed it that way, not because I hated you, but because I loved you too much to let you live the rest of your life as my shadow. You needed to break completely so you could rebuild yourself. Our children became monsters. That is my fault. I gave them too much. I taught them that money was power, but I never taught them compassion, humility, or hard work. When I saw what they had become, I knew I had to do something drastic. The empire they inherited is real, but it is structured to teach them a lesson. All those debts, all those problems, are consequences of decisions I made intentionally. I wanted them to feel pressure. I wanted them to understand that money without wisdom is a curse. But you, my love, you deserve something different. That parallel empire I built in your name is completely yours. 42 million in properties, plus the 6 million in cash that has accumulated. But that is not all. There is a third part of my estate that no one knows about. Not even Antonio, until 2 weeks ago. For the last 15 years, I have been investing in tech companies, international real estate, and investment funds under a shell corporation registered in Delaware. That corporation is worth approximately $68 million, and it is entirely in your name. Adding it all up, you are the owner of more than $116 million. You are one of the wealthiest women in California, and no one knows it. Today, in this meeting, Antonio will reveal all of this in front of our children. They will see your true power. They will see that the man they thought had forgotten you, in reality, gave you everything. But here is the most important part, Eleanor. That money is not for you to become like them. It is for you to rebuild your life on your own terms. Travel. Design buildings again. Pursue the dreams you sacrificed for us. Live. And about our children. That decision is yours. You can help them out of their debts, or you can let them learn the hard way. I will not judge you for whichever decision you make. I am in no position to judge anymore. I just want you to know that every decision I made, every moment of pain I caused you, was because I believed in you. In the woman you were before you met me. In the woman you can still be. Happy 70th birthday, my love. May these be the first of many more to come. Yours always, Arthur. The tears fell onto the paper, smudging the ink. But they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of release, of understanding, of forgiveness. Arthur had given me everything. Not just money. He had given me the chance to rediscover myself, to be strong, to be me again. The door opened. Antonio peeked his head in. They've arrived. Are you ready? I wiped my tears. I took a deep breath. I stood up, straightening my back, lifting my chin. I'm ready. We entered the conference room. Michael, Caroline, and Daniel were already there, sitting on one side of the table. Mr. Evans was with them, his expression confused. None of them understood why they were there. When they saw me walk in, their expressions were of shock. I was no longer the broken woman they had seen days ago in Mr. Evans's office. There was something different about me. Power, presence, control. I sat on the other side of the table, directly across from them. Antonio placed himself at the head, opening his briefcase and taking out documents. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. Today is Mrs. Eleanor Morgan's 70th birthday, and as per the specific instructions left by Arthur Morgan, the full truth about his estate will be revealed today. Michael leaned forward, impatient. Is there more money? Something that can help us with the debts? Antonio looked at him with an expression that could have been pity, or amusement, or both. Oh yes, Michael. There is much more money. But it is not for you. And then, the revelation that would change everything began. Antonio placed the documents on the table with deliberate, ceremonial movements. Each paper that landed sounded like a final judgment. My children watched with a mixture of confusion and desperate hope. Mr. Evans looked uncomfortable, as if he knew something important was about to explode, and he had no control over it. For the last 15 years, Arthur Morgan built a second empire, a parallel empire that no one in this room, except for me and now Eleanor, knew about. Antonio pushed the first document toward the center of the table. $42 million in real estate properties registered completely in the name of Eleanor Morgan. The silence was absolute. I could hear the clock ticking on the wall, the distant hum of the air conditioning, my own heart pounding like a war drum. Michael was the first to react. That's impossible. Dad would have told us. He would have included us in. He did not want to include you, Antonio interrupted coldly. In fact, he specifically excluded you. Here are the property records. Every building, every parcel of land, every investment, all in his wife's name. Caroline picked up one of the documents with trembling hands. Her eyes scanned the pages. Every line, every number. The color drained from her face with every passing second. This cannot be legal. Dad was not mentally well. He was under stress. Arthur Morgan was evaluated by 3 independent psychiatrists 1 month before his death. Antonio placed more papers down. All of them certified that he was in full command of his mental faculties. Every decision he made was deliberate, calculated, and completely legal. Daniel was staring at the table, his face buried in his hands. He did not even try to read the documents. I think in that moment, he understood before his siblings what had really happened. Their father had tested them, and they had all failed. But that is not all, Antonio continued, savoring every word. It was not cruelty, it was justice. Arthur also established a shell corporation 15 years ago. Investments in technology, international real estate, venture capital funds. That corporation is worth approximately $68 million. He pushed another set of documents forward, also registered completely in the name of Eleanor Morgan. Michael shot to his feet, his chair falling backward with a crash. This is bullshit. Dad cannot do this. We're his children, and she is his wife of 45 years. Antonio's voice was steel. The woman who sacrificed her career, her dreams, everything, so that you 3 could have the life you had. The woman you kicked out of her own home. The woman you let starve in a miserable apartment while you spent millions on unnecessary luxuries. Every word was a slap. Michael just stood there, shaking with rage and helplessness. Caroline was crying silently, her makeup running down her cheeks. Daniel was still, head in his hands, defeated. Mr. Evans finally spoke, his voice barely a whisper. What is the total estate? Adding the properties, the accumulated cash, and the shell corporation, Eleanor Morgan is the owner of approximately $116 million. Antonio leaned back in his chair. More than double what you 3 inherited. And unlike your estate, hers does not have a single dollar of debt. The silence that followed was devastating. All the arrogance, all the superiority, all the contempt my children had shown for months instantly evaporated. They looked at me as if seeing me for the first time. I was no longer the useless old woman. I was the wealthiest person in the room. Mom. Caroline tried to speak through her sobs. We did not know. If we had known. You would have been different, I interrupted. My voice was calm, but firm. You would have treated me with respect if you knew I had money? You would have loved me only because it was convenient? No one answered. Because we all knew the answer. I stood up slowly. For the first time in this meeting, all eyes were on me. But now it was not out of pity or contempt. It was out of respect, out of fear, out of the understanding that the balance of power had completely shifted. For 45 years, I became what you needed. The perfect wife, the sacrificial mother, the one who always put everyone else first. I walked around the table, my steps echoing in the room. And when your father died, you discarded me like trash. You humiliated me. You left me alone. You taught me that the love I gave you for your entire lives meant nothing. Michael opened his mouth to speak, but I stopped him with a look. Arthur gave me this fortune. But more importantly, he gave me the chance to see you without a mother's illusions. I saw you exactly as you are, greedy, cruel, selfish. I paused, and now I have a decision to make. The 3 of them tensed. They knew what was coming. The question that had been floating in the air since Antonio started revealing everything. You are in massive debt, on the verge of bankruptcy, and I have more than enough money to save you. Hope glittered in their eyes, pathetic, desperate, but I am not going to. The blow was visible. Caroline let out a whimper. Daniel shut his eyes tightly. Michael's hands clenched into fists until his knuckles turned white. Not because I am vengeful, but because your father was right. You need to learn this lesson, the hard way. You need to understand that money without values is a curse. You need to build something for yourselves for the first time in your lives. I walked to the door. Then I stopped and turned one last time. If someday, not tomorrow or next month, but someday in the future, when you have learned humility, when you understand the value of hard work and compassion, if at that moment you come to me as children who truly love their mother and not as beggars looking for money, then maybe, just maybe, we can rebuild what was broken. I walked out of that conference room with my head held high. Behind me I heard sobs, muffled shouts, the sound of a world collapsing, but I kept walking. Because for the first time in 70 years, I was walking toward my own future, not someone else's. Antonio caught up with me in the hallway. He was smiling. Arthur would be proud. I know. And I did. I could feel it, as if his spirit were there, watching, finally at peace. 3 months later, I was standing in front of a new building in the center of the city. My building. Not as an investment, but as my new architecture studio. Eleanor Designs, the sign on the entrance read. Small, modest, but mine. I had hired 3 talented young architects. I paid them well. I taught them everything I knew. And for the first time in decades, I was creating again, designing, building, living. My children had not called. I heard from Antonio that they had filed for corporate bankruptcy. Michael was working at a real estate firm as a regular agent. Carolyn had sold the mansion and was living in a normal apartment. Daniel had gone back to college to finish a degree he abandoned years ago. Maybe one day they would come to me, maybe not. But I was at peace with both possibilities. Because I finally understood what Arthur had been trying to teach me. The greater the humiliation, the greater the preparation. What seemed like the end was only the beginning of who I really was. It took me 70 years to find myself, but it was worth every second of pain. I looked at the phone Arthur had left me, now kept on my desk like a relic. I smiled. Thank you, my love, for believing in me when I did not believe in myself, for giving me wings when I thought I only deserved chains, for reminding me that it is never too late to start over. Outside, the city shined with infinite possibilities, and I, Eleanor Morgan, was finally ready to live them all. Your daughter-in-law is here with some men. She says she's the new owner and is going to take the furniture. Leo's voice sounded nervous on the phone. It was 5 o'clock in the morning, and I was at the beach house, still lying in bed, with the window open letting in the sea breeze. I had come here after Elijah's wedding, seeking peace, distance, a break from everything I had been feeling in recent months. I sat up slowly in bed. I didn't feel panic. I didn't feel surprise. I felt something strange, almost like satisfaction. Don't stop her, Leo. My voice came out calm, serene. Let her in. She's going to find a surprise. There was a confused silence on the other end. Are you sure, Miss Rose? Completely sure. Let her pass with her men. Just make sure she signs the log with her full name and her ID. I hung up and immediately opened the app on my cell phone. The security cameras I had installed 3 weeks ago. No one knew about them. Not Elijah, not Rebecca, not even my friend Claire. They were small, invisible, strategically placed in every corner of the apartment. Living room, kitchen, bedrooms, main entrance. All streaming live and recording directly to the cloud. The image appeared on the screen. There she was, Rebecca Tierra, my daughter-in-law of just 4 months, standing in the lobby of my building, talking to the men accompanying her, 3 big guys, in moving company uniforms. One of them was carrying empty boxes. Another was checking something on a paper. Rebecca had her hair up, wearing workout clothes, as if she had come to exercise. But her face showed something else. Anxiety, hurry, determination. I watched her talk to Leo. She gesticulated a lot, pointing towards the elevator. Although I couldn't hear what she was saying, I read on her lips something that made me grip the phone tighter. It's my right. It belongs to me now. I touched the screen and switched to the camera in my floor's hallway. It was still empty, silent. My apartment door closed, intact. I went back to the lobby image. Rebecca was already entering the elevator with the 3 men. Leo stayed behind, watching them go, his face worried. Good man. He had worked in that building since I moved in, 10 years ago. He knew my routine, knew I was alone since I was widowed, always greeted me with respect. I took a deep breath. My heart was beating fast now, but not from fear. It was anticipation, like when you know something important is about to happen and you, for the first time in a long time, are in control. The elevator went up. 6th floor, 7th, 8th, 9th. My apartment was on the 10th. I watched the doors open and Rebecca came out first, hurried, followed by the men. She walked straight to my door. She took something out of her purse. A key. My key. The image was clear. The hallway camera captured everything. Rebecca put the key in the lock, turned, and the door opened. They all went in. The apartment light came on. And then, I switched to the interior cameras. There they were, in my living room. Rebecca was looking around with that expression I had seen before. Calculating, evaluating, as if she were appraising every object, every piece of furniture, every detail of my life. The men waited for instructions. "That sofa first," I heard her say clearly. The camera's audio was perfect. "And that table. Be careful with the vases. Those are expensive." One of the men looked at her strangely. "Are you sure the owner gave permission?" Rebecca looked at him with annoyance. "I am the owner now. My mother-in-law signed everything over to me. That old woman, she can't take care of these things anymore. It's better if they're with me." I stayed still, watching the screen, listening to every word. Old woman, can't take care. The same phrases I had heard from her mouth for months, but now said with that confidence, that certainty that I wasn't there to contradict her. Another man asked, "And the documents? We usually need to see something in writing." Rebecca pulled a paper from her purse. She showed it quickly, without letting them read it well. "Here it is. Everything legal. Now, move. We have to finish before it gets too light. Before it gets too light. Before anyone sees. Before the neighbors wake up and ask questions. Before someone calls the police." But it was already too late for that. Because while she was talking, while the men were starting to lift my furniture, while Rebecca was checking the drawers of my sideboard looking for who knows what, the cameras were recording everything. Every movement, every word. And not only that, the app had already sent an automatic alert to my lawyer, Olivia Reed, and to the nearest police station. I set up that system 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks after the dinner at Elijah's house, where I felt sick. 3 weeks after starting to notice strange things. 3 weeks after hearing Rebecca talk on the phone in a low voice about speeding up the process. I looked at the screen again. Rebecca had entered my bedroom now. I saw her open my closet, check my vanity, put her hand in my jewelry box. She took out a necklace that my late husband had given me for our 20th anniversary. She looked at it against the light, smiled, and put it in her pocket. "I'll take this too." One of the men appeared in the doorway. "Ma'am, there's a lot of stuff here. Are you taking everything?" Rebecca turned around. "Everything that's worth anything. My mother-in-law doesn't need it anymore. She's in a better place now." The way she said it, as if I were already dead. As if my life had already ended, and she was just picking up the pieces. I closed my eyes for a moment. I took a deep breath. The sound of the sea calmed me. When I opened them again, I touched another icon on the app. The cameras had a special function. They could record conversations even when people thought they were talking in private. Rebecca had gone back to the living room. She took out her cell phone and called someone. She waited. Then she spoke. "I'm inside." "Yes, with the key I got last week." "No, she's not here. She's at the beach house like always. This is going to be quick." Pause. She was listening to someone on the other end. "No, the tea thing didn't work. It seems she stopped drinking it, but it doesn't matter anymore. This is enough. Once I have everything here, I'm going to make Elijah sign the papers. He doesn't suspect a thing." Another pause. Then, a laugh. "Obviously he's not going to like it at first, but when he sees it's already done, what's he going to do? She doesn't have anyone else. We're her only family." My hand tightened on the phone. The tea thing, those afternoons at Elijah's house, when Rebecca insisted I stay for a snack, when she prepared me that herbal tea, she said, was good for circulation, for sleep, for nerves. That tea after which I always felt dizzy, confused, with nausea that lasted for hours. It wasn't my paranoia. It wasn't an old woman's imagination. It was real. Rebecca kept talking. Look, with what's in here we can sell at least $20,000, and that's not even counting the apartment. When we sell it, that's like $200,000 more. We'll be set for years. And she won't even be able to fight it. By the time she realizes, everything will already be in our name. She hung up. She stood in the middle of my living room, looking around with that smile. Satisfied. Victorious. I sat on the bed, at the beach house, with the phone in my hand and tears I didn't know were there until I felt one roll down my cheek. It wasn't about the furniture. It wasn't about the money. It was about the betrayal. It was about realizing that my son had married someone capable of this. It was for all those times I doubted myself, that I thought I was exaggerating, that I told myself I was just a jealous mother-in-law, a bitter old woman who couldn't accept sharing her son. But it wasn't that. Rebecca Tierra had planned to rob me. She had tried to poison me. And now she was in my house, in my space, touching my things, taking my life piece by piece. I looked at the time. 5:25 in the morning. The police should have received the alert by now. Olivia too. In any moment, things were going to change. But before that happened, I needed to understand how I had gotten here. How a 60-year-old woman, a widow, independent, who had raised her son alone after her husband died, who had worked her whole life, who had bought this apartment with her own money, had ended up being seen as an obstacle, as something to be moved out of the way. I needed to remember where this all began. It all started 4 months ago, when Elijah called me to say he had met someone special. I was at the salon, with Claire by my side. Every week we went together, on Thursday afternoons. It was our ritual for years. We got our hair done, we got our nails done, we caught up on our lives. Claire was 62 years old, 2 years older than me, and a widow too. We had met in a morning walking group at the park, and had been inseparable ever since. When the phone rang and I saw Elijah's name, I smiled. My son didn't call as often as he used to, but when he did, it always brightened my day. "Mom, I have to tell you something." His voice sounded different, excited, nervous. "Tell me, son. I met someone. An incredible woman. Her name is Rebecca. We've been dating for 3 months, and I think she's the one." I sat still under the dryer. Claire looked at me curiously. 3 months, and I knew nothing. 3 months, and he had never introduced her to me. I swallowed the little pang I felt in my chest and smiled, even though he couldn't see me. "That's wonderful news. Elijah, I'm so happy for you. I want you to meet her. What if you two come over for dinner at my place on Saturday? You and your friend Claire. If she wants to come." I accepted. Of course I accepted. He was my son, my only son. The man I had raised alone after his father died of a heart attack when Elijah was just 17. 13 years had passed since then. 13 years in which my life had revolved around making sure he was okay, that he finished college, that he got a good job, that he was happy. Saturday arrived, and I went to his apartment with a bottle of wine and a dessert I had bought at Elijah's favorite bakery. Claire came with me. She always said I needed witnesses at the important moments of my life. Rebecca opened the door. She was younger than I expected, 32 years old. I would find out later. Almost 15 years younger than Elijah. Tall, thin, with long, dark hair, perfect makeup, expensive clothes. She smiled widely when she saw us. "Rose, what a pleasure to finally meet you. Elijah talks about you all the time." She hugged me. It was a long, tight hug, as if we were old friends. She smelled of a sweet, strong perfume. We went in. Elijah's apartment looked different, more decorated. There were new cushions on the sofa, pictures on the walls, scented candles lit. The table was set with placemats and cloth napkins I didn't recognize. Rebecca has great taste for decorating. Elijah appeared from the kitchen, smiling proudly. We had dinner. Rebecca had cooked. Meatloaf, salad, roasted potatoes. Everything was well presented, although a bit bland for my taste. But I ate and smiled and said it was delicious because I saw how Elijah looked at her, waiting for my approval. During dinner, Rebecca talked a lot. About her job at an ad agency, about her plans to open her own business someday, about how wonderful Elijah was, about how happy she was to have met him. She asked about my life too, where I worked, if I was retired, if I lived alone, if I had many friends. "It must be hard to be alone in that big apartment," she said at one point, in a compassionate tone, "especially at your age." At my age, I was 60, not 80. I worked part-time as an accounting consultant, went to the gym 3 times a week, had a group of friends I went out with regularly, drove my own car, paid my own bills, traveled when I wanted. I didn't feel alone. I didn't feel incapable. But the way she said it, as if it were an obvious fact, made me uncomfortable. "I'm fine," I replied simply. "I like my independence." Rebecca smiled. Of course. But still, if you ever need help with anything, Elijah and I are here. We're family now." Family. They had been dating for 3 months, and she was already talking about family. Claire gave me a sideways glance. I knew that look. It was her way of saying, "Be careful." After dinner, Rebecca insisted on making tea. I brought some special herbs. They're great for digestion and for relaxing. She came back from the kitchen with 4 steaming cups. The tea had a strange smell, something between mint and something more bitter that I couldn't identify. I drank a little out of politeness. Claire barely touched hers. Elijah drank his completely, praising the flavor. Rebecca watched us as we drank, smiling. Half an hour later, I started to feel dizzy, a slight dizziness at first, then stronger. The living room seemed to be moving slightly. I told Elijah I'd better go, that I was tired. Claire drove me home in my own car because I didn't feel capable of driving. "I don't like that woman," Claire said when we were in the elevator going up to my apartment. "There's something strange about her. And that tea, did you taste it?" I had noticed it too, but I didn't want to admit it. I didn't want to be that mother-in-law, that woman who never accepts anyone because no one is good enough for her son. In the following weeks, Rebecca started to appear more in my life. Calls to invite me for coffee, text messages asking how I was. Surprise visits to the apartment with Elijah, always friendly, always smiling, always with that tone of concern that seemed genuine, but that made me feel watched. "Are you eating well, Rose? You look a little thin. Are you sleeping enough? You have dark circles. Isn't it a lot for you to live alone on a 10th floor? What if something happens to you and no one finds out?" Each comment was like a drop of water. One alone means nothing, but when they accumulate, they start to make a whole. Elijah changed too. He started repeating Rebecca's same phrases. "Mom, are you sure you're okay? Rebecca says she sees you looking tired. Mom, wouldn't it be easier if you lived in a smaller place? Mom, you should think about the future, about what will happen when you can't take care of yourself anymore." I was 60 years old. I worked. I went out. I traveled. But suddenly they were making me feel as if I were on the verge of incapacity. A month later, Elijah called me with other news. They were getting married. In 3 months. Rebecca had already planned everything. A small, intimate wedding, just close family and a few friends. I, of course, would pay for part of the expenses. I was the mother of the groom. It was my responsibility. I contributed $5,000. Money I had saved for years. Money I had set aside for emergencies or for a special trip. But it was my son's wedding. How was I going to refuse? The wedding was nice. Rebecca wore a stunning white dress that, according to Elijah, had cost $3,000. There were flowers everywhere, live music, expensive food, all very elegant. I smiled in the photos. I hugged my son. I welcomed Rebecca to the family. But during the reception, I heard something that chilled my blood. I was in the bathroom, touching up my makeup, when I heard voices on the other side of the door. It was Rebecca talking to someone. A friend, I assumed. "I'm telling you, this marriage is the best investment I've ever made. Elijah is easy to handle, and the old woman has money. An apartment that's worth like $200,000. Savings. A beach house. And the best part is, she has no one else. Just Elijah. Everything is going to be ours eventually." The other voice laughed. "And what if she doesn't want to? That's why I'm working on it. I already have her half convinced that she's too old to take care of her things." Give it a few more months and she'll be begging us to help her. They left the bathroom. I stayed inside, gripping the sink, trying to breathe. It wasn't my imagination. I wasn't being paranoid. Rebecca Tierra had planned everything from the beginning. That night, at the beach house where I went after the wedding, I made a decision. I was not going to be a victim. I was not going to let them steal what I had built. I was not going to stay silent while they treated me as if I were an obstacle that needed to be moved out of the way. I called Olivia Reed, my lawyer and friend for years. I told her everything, every strange detail, every out-of-place comment, every moment I had felt manipulated. "Rose, you need to protect yourself," she told me, "and you need proof. Because if this becomes a legal issue, your word alone won't be enough. She's going to say you're confused, that you're paranoid, that your age is affecting you." It was Olivia's idea to install the cameras, small, invisible cameras with high-quality audio, all over my house, connected to an app on my phone, programmed to record everything and send automatic alerts if someone entered without my permission. "If she tries anything, you'll have proof," Olivia said, "and that proof will bury her." I installed the cameras 3 weeks ago. I changed the locks too, but I left an old key hidden where I knew Rebecca would find it. I wanted her to think she still had access. I wanted her to feel secure. And it worked. Because now, while I was sitting at the beach house watching my phone, she was in my apartment, stealing my things, confessing her plans, burying herself. 2 weeks after the wedding, while I was still processing what I had heard in the bathroom, Rebecca began the next phase of her plan. She invited me to lunch at her apartment. Well, now it was her and Elijah's apartment. He had bought it 2 years ago with my help, a $15,000 loan he never paid back. But it didn't matter. He was my son. I wanted to help him. I arrived with a plant as a housewarming gift. Rebecca opened the door wearing an apron, as if she had been cooking all morning. The house smelled like homemade food. She hugged me with that same exaggerated enthusiasm as always. "Rose, how lovely. Come in, come in." Elijah is at work, but I wanted us to have some time alone, to get to know each other better. We're family now. I sat on the sofa. The same sofa I had helped Elijah buy. Rebecca brought lemonade in tall glasses with ice and mint. While we drank, she asked me about my daily routine. "Do you still go to the gym 3 times a week? Isn't that very tiring for you?" "No, I like going. It keeps me active." She nodded with that understanding expression. "It's admirable, but you have to be careful. At a certain age, the body doesn't respond the same. My grandmother fell at the gym 2 years ago. She broke her hip. She never walked right again." I took another sip of lemonade. It tasted strange, too sweet, with a bitter aftertaste. "And that apartment? So big," Rebecca continued. 10 floors up, so many rooms. Don't you feel lonely there? Aren't you afraid something will happen and no one will find out?" "I have friends who live nearby. Claire stops by often." "Yes, but still. A woman your age living alone. Elijah worries a lot about you, you know? He always says it makes him anxious to think about something bad happening to you." My age. Again. As if 60 years was synonymous with incapacity. We had roast chicken with vegetables for lunch. The food was fine, though again a bit bland. Rebecca insisted I eat more, serving me large portions. After lunch, she made that tea again. The same one from the first dinner. The same herbs with that strange smell. "It's wonderful for digestion and helps you sleep better. You mentioned you sometimes have insomnia." I had never mentioned that. I slept perfectly well. But she said it with such certainty that for a moment I doubted my own memory. I drank the tea out of politeness. This time the bitter taste was stronger. I forced myself to finish it while Rebecca watched me with that fixed smile. "Rose, I want to talk about something important." She leaned forward, as if sharing a secret. "Elijah and I have been thinking. You have a lot of properties, a lot of responsibilities. The apartment, the beach house, the bills, the taxes. Wouldn't it be easier if we helped you manage all that?" My heart beat faster. "I manage my things fine." Of course, I'm not saying you can't, just that sometimes it's good to have help. Someone younger who understands technology, banks, all those modern things. We could make Elijah a co-owner, for example, just for security. so that if anything happens to you, everything is in order. Co-owner. That word hit me like ice water. I don't think that's necessary. Rebecca kept the smile, but something in her eyes changed. Well, think about it. It's just a suggestion. We only want to take care of you. Half an hour later, I started to feel sick again. The same dizziness from the first time. Nausea. The room was moving slightly. I told her I'd better go. Rebecca insisted on calling a cab, saying I wasn't in any condition to drive. She was right. I wasn't. In the cab on the way home, I opened my WhatsApp. I had messages from my gym friends group, photos of Claire in the park, a video of my niece from Spain. Real people, real life, reminding me that I wasn't alone or useless like Rebecca wanted to make me feel. The following days, Rebecca's calls and messages intensified. Good morning, Rose. Good afternoon. How did you sleep? What did you do today? Every message disguised as concern, but which felt like surveillance. Elijah also started asking strange questions. Mom, did you pay the electric bill this month? And the water? Are you sure? As if suddenly I were incapable of remembering to pay my own bills. Bills I had paid for 40 years without a problem. One afternoon, I was in the living room with Claire when Rebecca showed up unannounced. She rang the bell, came up without me giving permission, and arrived at my door with a grocery bag. I brought you a few things. Fruit, bread, milk. I was passing by and thought of you. Claire was sitting in my living room. She looked at Rebecca with that expression I already knew. Distrust. How nice, I said, taking the bag. I hadn't invited her in, but she entered anyway. What a huge apartment. She walked through the living room, looking at everything, touching the furniture. And these paintings, they must be valuable. They were my husband's. Beautiful. It must be hard to keep all this clean. So many rooms, so many things. Haven't you thought about simplifying, selling some things, moving to something smaller, more manageable? Claire stood up. Rose manages her house perfectly. Rebecca looked at her as if she had just noticed her. Of course. I'm just saying that sometimes less is more, especially as one gets older. Getting older. As if I were on the verge of senility. After she left, Claire exploded. That woman is a viper. Don't you see what she's doing? She's undermining you. Little by little, making you doubt yourself. Preparing the ground for something. I know, I finally admitted. I heard something at her wedding. She married Elijah for the money, for my properties. Claire was silent for a moment. And what are you going to do? I don't know yet, but I need to be smart. If I confront her now, she'll deny everything. She'll say I'm paranoid, that my age is affecting me, and Elijah will believe her. She has him that controlled. I nodded. Since they got married, Elijah is a different person. He repeats everything she says. He looks at me differently, as if I'm a burden. The next day, Rebecca sent another message. We need to talk about something important. Can you come to dinner tonight? I went. Against my better judgment, I went. Because I still had that little sliver of hope that I was wrong, that Rebecca really did care. That my son hadn't traded me for a woman who only saw dollar signs where there should be family. Dinner was tense. Elijah was quiet. Rebecca talked non-stop. After dessert, she pulled out some papers. Rose, we prepared something. She put them on the table. It's a power of attorney. Simple, nothing complicated. Just so Elijah can help you with your bank accounts, with the payments, with the properties. You just have to sign here. I looked at the papers. My name was written there. Blank spaces for my signature. Legal words I barely understood. I'm not signing anything without my lawyer reviewing it first. Rebecca's face hardened for a fraction of a second. Then the smile returned. Of course, it's smart to be careful, but this is just to make things easier for you. So you don't have to worry about anything. I'm not worried. I manage my things fine. Mom, Elijah finally spoke. His voice sounded tired. We're just trying to help you. Why are you making it so difficult? Why was I making it difficult? As if taking care of my own things was an act of stubbornness and not common sense. I stood up. I'm going. Rebecca stood up too. It's okay. Take the papers. Think about it. But really, Rose, this is for your own good. We just want to protect you. Protect me. That word haunted me all the way home. Because I knew that when people say they want to protect you, sometimes what they really want is to control you. The week after I refused to sign the papers, everything got worse. Elijah stopped answering my calls as frequently. When he did, his answers were short, cold. Rebecca, on the other hand, called me more, always with that sweet, worried voice that already set my nerves on edge. "Rose, Elijah is very sad. He says you don't trust him, that you rejected him when he only wanted to help." I was at the park with my walking group, 5 women between 55 and 68 years old, all widows or divorced, all independent. We met 3 times a week at 6 in the morning to walk 3 miles around the lake. Afterward, we'd have coffee at the stand and catch up on our lives. "I didn't reject anyone," I told Rebecca, moving a little away from the group. "I just said I needed to review the papers with my lawyer. That's normal." "Yes, but Elijah felt like you don't trust him, like you think he's going to do something bad to you." "Rebecca, they're my properties. I have a right to be careful." There was a silence. Then her voice changed slightly. Colder. "Of course. You're right. Well, I hope your lawyer tells you everything is in order. We just want what's best for you, even if you don't see it that way." She hung up. I went back to my friends. Sharon Davis, the oldest of the group, looked at me with concern. "Everything okay?" "My daughter-in-law." Ah, Sharon knew the story. They all did. I had told them everything. "That woman needs clear boundaries." "I know, but it's hard. Elijah is completely on her side." Tanya Price, who was 61 and had been a nurse for 30 years, came closer. "Rose, are you still feeling dizzy after visiting them?" "Yes. Every time I drink that tea she makes." "Don't drink anything else she gives you." "Nothing. Not food, not drink, nothing." "Do you think she could really be putting something in it?" Tanya looked at me seriously. "I've seen cases. People who use herbs, medications, anything to make a person seem confused, sick, incapable. Then they say the person needs help, that they can't take care of themselves, and they end up taking control of everything." Her words chilled me. Because it made sense. Everything made sense. That afternoon I went to see Olivia Reed. Her office was downtown, in an old but well-maintained building. Olivia was 65. With completely white hair, she wore short, thick glasses, and a brilliant legal mind. She had been my lawyer since my husband died. I showed her the papers Rebecca had wanted me to sign. Olivia read them in silence. Her expression grew more and more serious. Finally, she put them down on her desk and looked at me. "Rose, if you had signed this, you would basically be giving Elijah complete power over all your accounts, your properties, your financial decisions. They could sell your apartment without your consent. They could empty your bank accounts. They could do whatever they wanted." I felt like I couldn't breathe. But Rebecca said it was just to help me, to help themselves. This isn't a help document. This is a power transfer document, and it's written in a very clever way. Any judge who sees it will think you're not in a condition to manage your own affairs. What do I do? Olivia leaned back in her chair. "First, never sign anything without consulting me. Second, we need to protect you legally. I'm going to draft documents that clearly establish you are in full command of your faculties, that you make your own decisions, and that no one has authority over your assets except you. Third, and this is important, you need proof of what's happening." "What kind of proof?" "Recordings, messages, anything that shows they are manipulating you. Because if this goes to court, and I suspect it might, your word alone won't be enough. They'll say you're confused, that your age is affecting you, that you need help. They'll paint you as a senile old woman who doesn't know what she's doing." That word "old," as if being 60 automatically made me invalid. "What if I install cameras in my apartment?" Olivia raised an eyebrow. "Cameras?" "To record if they try to enter without my permission, or if they say something compromising when they're there. It's your property. You have every right to install security cameras, and yes, they could be useful as evidence." I left her office with a plan. That same afternoon, I searched online. I found small wireless cameras with high-definition audio. They connected to an app on the phone. They recorded automatically when they detected motion. They saved everything to the cloud. A package of 6 cameras cost $800. I bought them without a second thought. They arrived 3 days later. I spent a whole afternoon installing them, in the living room, hidden behind a picture frame. In the kitchen, on top of the refrigerator. In my bedroom. On the bookshelf. In the dining room. In a decorative plant. In the study, behind some books. At the entrance, camouflaged in the smoke detector, I downloaded the app, set up the notifications, tested that they worked. Everything perfect. I also changed the locks on my apartment, but in a smart way. I hired a locksmith and asked him to leave the old lock installed, but useless, and to put a new one right below it. From the outside, it looked like there was only one lock. But the old key that Rebecca had probably copied no longer worked. And then I waited. I didn't have to wait long. 2 days later, I was at the grocery store when my phone vibrated. Notification from the cameras. Movement detected in the apartment. I opened the app. My heart beat fast. It was Rebecca. She was in my living room, alone, walking slowly, looking at everything. She opened the drawers of my sideboard. She checked the papers that were there. She took photos with her phone of some documents. Then she went to my bedroom. She opened my closet. She checked my jewelry box. She took a ring my husband had given me and put it in her purse. She stayed almost 20 minutes in my apartment, checking, photographing, touching my things, as if they were already hers. When she left, I sat in the middle of the grocery aisle, my shopping cart forgotten beside me, staring at my phone. My hands were shaking. It wasn't paranoia. It was real. Rebecca was planning to rob me. That night, Elijah called. "Mom, Rebecca told me you're not treating her well, that you ignore her, that you're cold to her." "Elijah, how did Rebecca get into my apartment today?" Silence. "What?" "She was in my apartment this afternoon. You gave her a key." She said she needed to pick up something she had lent you. I didn't borrow anything from her. And she was going through my drawers, my documents, my personal things. Does that seem normal to you?" "Mom, don't start with your theories. Rebecca wants to help you, and you just push her away. You're being paranoid." Paranoid. That word again. "Elijah, I have cameras. I recorded her, going through my things, taking photos of my documents, stealing a ring." Another silence. Longer. "Cameras? Since when do you have cameras?" "Since I started to suspect something wasn't right." "This is ridiculous. You're spying on your own family." "Mom, I think you need help. Professional help. Maybe talk to a doctor about this." "A doctor. They wanted to declare me incompetent, mentally ill, convenient. I don't need a doctor. Elijah, I need you to understand that your wife is not who you think she is. I'm not going to listen to this. Rebecca is my wife, and if you can't accept her, then maybe we need to take some distance." He hung up. I was left with the phone in my hand, in my empty apartment, feeling like everything was collapsing. My only son had just chosen a woman he'd known for months over the mother who had raised him alone for 13 years. But I wasn't going to give up. I called Olivia. I told her everything. I sent her the camera videos. "This is perfect," she said. "We have evidence of breaking and entering, and if she stole something, it's theft too. Rose, you've got her. And now what? Now we wait. Let her believe she's in control. Let her keep making moves. The more she does, the more evidence we have." It was the hardest advice to follow, because every fiber of my being wanted to confront her, to scream at her, to show her that I knew. But I stayed quiet, and I waited. The ultimate humiliation came at the family lunch Rebecca organized 2 weeks later. She called me on a Tuesday morning. Her voice sounded cheerful, as if nothing had happened, as if I didn't know she had entered my apartment without permission, that she had stolen my ring, that she had photographed my documents. "Rose, I want us all to get together this Sunday. A family lunch. I'm going to invite my mother and my brother too. It'll be nice for you to meet." I almost told her no. But then I remembered Olivia's words. Let her believe she's in control. The more she does, the more evidence we have. "All right, I'll be there." "Perfect. And Rose, please bring the documents for the beach house. Elijah and I want to help you organize the tax papers. You know, those things get complicated at a certain age. At a certain age, every time she said it, it was like a small blow. On Sunday, I arrived at her apartment at noon. I rang the bell and Rebecca opened. She was wearing an elegant dress, perfect makeup, a radiant smile. "Rose, so good to see you. Come in, come in." In the living room were Elijah, an older woman I assumed was Rebecca's mother, and a young man in his 30s who must have been the brother. There was also another couple I didn't know. "They are Raymond and Helen Ortega, my aunt and uncle," Rebecca said. I sat on the sofa. Rebecca's mother looked me up and down with an expression I couldn't decipher. The brother didn't even greet me, just nodded while checking his phone. Rebecca brought wine. I politely declined and asked for water. I wasn't going to drink anything she gave me. I had learned that lesson. During lunch, Rebecca dominated the conversation. She talked about her business plans, about how well Elijah was doing at work, about how happy they were together. I ate in silence, answering only when asked something directly. After dessert, Rebecca changed her tone. "Well, now that we're all family, there's something important we want to share." She looked at Elijah. He looked uncomfortable but nodded. "We've been worried about Rose." All eyes turned to me. "Lately, we've noticed she's very forgetful," Rebecca continued with that soft, worried voice. "She forgets things. She gets confused with dates. The other day she called me thinking it was Thursday when it was Sunday. That was a lie. It had never happened. And she's been very paranoid," she added. "She installed cameras in her apartment because she thinks someone is spying on her. She accuses us of things we haven't done." Rebecca's mother made a pitying sound. "Poor thing. It's normal at that age. My mother was the same before we had to put her in a home." I felt the heat rise to my face. "I'm not confused. And I installed the cameras because someone entered my apartment without my permission." Rebecca looked at me with an expression of infinite patience, like one looks at a child who is talking nonsense. "Rose, I came in because you had told me I could stop by to pick up that book you lent me. Don't you remember? I never lent you any book." "See?" Rebecca looked at the others. "This is what I'm talking about. She doesn't remember things." Elijah intervened. "Mom, we're worried. Really. Living alone in that big apartment isn't safe for you anymore. You've had falls." "I have never fallen. You fell in the bathroom 2 weeks ago. You told me on the phone. That also wasn't true. I had never said that." Rebecca's brother spoke for the first time. "Look, ma'am, I know it's hard to accept, but my grandmother was the same. She started by denying anything was wrong, and she ended up lost in the street, not remembering her address." I stood up. "I'm not going to stay here and listen to this." Rebecca stood up too. "Rose, please sit down. This is important. We love you. We want to help you. That's why we prepared a solution." She pulled some papers from a folder that was on the table. "Different papers from the first time. We spoke with a lawyer. This is a voluntary guardianship. Basically, you agree that you need help managing your affairs and you authorize us to do it for you. It's for the best. That way, you can continue to live peacefully without worrying about anything." I looked at the papers. Then I looked at Elijah. My son, the man I had raised, wouldn't meet my eyes. "I'm not signing that." Rebecca's mask fell for a second. I saw pure rage in her eyes. But she quickly composed herself. "Rose, if you don't sign voluntarily, we'll have to start a legal process. We have witnesses." She pointed to everyone in the room. "Everyone here can confirm that you're not well, that you're confused, that you need help. A judge will order a psychological evaluation, and when that evaluation shows you can't take care of yourself, they'll assign you a guardian anyway. It's better if it's family, don't you think?" It was a trap. A perfect trap. If I signed, I lost everything. If I didn't sign, they would force me legally, and they had witnesses willing to lie for her. I felt something break inside me. It wasn't fear. It wasn't sadness. It was a cold, absolute clarity. "I need to go to the bathroom." Rebecca smiled. "Of course. It's the first door on the left." I went to the bathroom. I locked the door. I took out my phone. I texted Olivia, my real lawyer. "They're trying to force me to sign a guardianship. They have false witnesses. I need help." Her response came in seconds. "Don't sign anything. Get out of there. I'm starting legal action immediately. We have the recordings. This is coercion. I took a deep breath. I splashed water on my face. I looked at myself in the mirror. I saw a 60-year-old woman, tired, yes, scared, too, but not defeated. I left the bathroom. Everyone was waiting for me in silence. I'm not signing, I said in a clear voice. And if you try to force me, my lawyer will take legal action against all of you for coercion and fraud. Rebecca stood up. Fraud? How dare you? I know exactly what you're doing. I know you entered my apartment without permission. I know you stole my ring. I know you've been making things up about me to make it seem like I'm incapacitated. And I have proof of everything. The room fell into absolute silence. Elijah finally looked at me. Mom, what are you talking about? Ask your wife about the gold ring she took from my jewelry box 2 weeks ago. Ask her about the photos she took of my documents. Ask her about her phone conversations where she talks about my apartment as if it's already hers. Rebecca laughed, a nervous laugh. This is ridiculous. Elijah, do you see what I'm talking about? She's delusional. I have recordings, I said simply. Cameras with audio, all over my apartment, recording every time someone enters, saving everything to the cloud. And my lawyer has copies of everything. I turned to Elijah. Son, I love you, but your wife married you for money, for my properties. And she has been trying to make me seem incapable so she can take it all. That's not true. Rebecca's voice was sharp now. Elijah, don't believe her. She's sick. She's seeing things that don't exist. But Elijah was looking at me differently now, as if he were finally seeing something that had been there all along. I grabbed my purse. I'm leaving. And the next time someone enters my apartment without my permission, I'll call the police. I left. No one stopped me. In the elevator, going down, my hands were shaking. I had broken the silence. I had shown my cards. But I had no other choice. Outside, in my car, I sat for a long time. The phone rang. It was Claire. How was lunch? Horrible. I'll tell you later. Are you okay? No. I wasn't okay, but I was going to be. I'm going to be. I drove to the beach house. I needed to be away. I needed to think. I needed to prepare for what was coming, because now Rebecca knew that I knew. And desperate people do desperate things. That same night, from the beach house, I called Olivia. I need to protect myself, legally. Now. We met the next day. She came all the way to the beach with a folder full of documents. We sat on the terrace with the sound of the waves in the background as she explained every step we were going to take. First, we're going to get a full psychological evaluation with a certified professional to prove you're in full command of your mental faculties, that there's no dementia, no confusion, nothing to justify a guardianship. I nodded. How long does that take? A week. Maybe 2. It's several sessions, cognitive tests, interviews. But it's essential because when Rebecca tries to say you're incapacitated, we'll have recent medical evidence that contradicts it. What else? We're going to update your will, and we're going to put in very specific clauses that no property can be sold or transferred without your express authorization before a notary, that any change requires the approval of 2 independent witnesses. Basically, we're going to armor plate everything. I took mental note of everything. You also need to change your bank accounts. Open new accounts at another bank. Transfer your money there. Accounts that only you have access to. Don't even tell Elijah they exist. And the beach house? That's just in your name, right? Yes. I bought it 5 years ago with money from my job. Good. We're going to make sure that's very clear in all the records. And we're going to install cameras here too. If Rebecca tries to get in, we'll know. I spent the next few days executing the plan. I went to a forensic psychologist Olivia recommended. Dr. Julian Hayes, a 50-year-old man with 30 years of experience evaluating mental capacity. He gave me memory tests, reasoning tests, temporal and spatial orientation tests. He asked me about my life, my routines, my financial decisions. It was exhaustive. But when we finished, he gave me his verdict. Mrs. Rose, you are perfectly competent. There are no signs of cognitive decline, no confusion. There is nothing to justify someone else making decisions for you. I will write up a full report, and if necessary, I will testify before a judge. I left his office with a feeling of relief mixed with anger. Relief because I had confirmation. Anger because I needed that confirmation in the first place. Because my own family had made me doubt my sanity. I opened new bank accounts. At a different bank, in another part of the city, I transferred my savings, $53,000 that I had accumulated over years. Money that represented my security, my independence, my future. I updated my will. The new clauses were clear. If anything happened to me, the apartment and the beach house would be sold and the money would go to a foundation helping elderly women. Nothing for Elijah, as long as he was married to Rebecca. Olivia was named the executor. It's drastic, I admitted as I signed, but I can't take the risk. It's smart, Olivia said. And you can change it later if things get better. But for now, you're protected. I installed more cameras at the beach house. Reinforced the locks. I left clear instructions with the neighbors that no one was to enter without my direct authorization. During those days, Elijah called me several times. I didn't answer. I wasn't ready. I needed to have everything in order first. Rebecca called too. She left voicemails. At first, she sounded worried. Sweet. Rose, please answer. We're worried. What happened on Sunday was a misunderstanding. Then the messages changed tone. You can't hide forever. We need to resolve this. And finally, barely veiled threats. If you don't talk to us, we're going to have to take legal action. For your own good. I saved every message. Every recording. Everything was evidence. A week later, I returned to the city. I had a meeting with Olivia at her office. When I arrived, she had a grave expression. Rose, Rebecca, and Elijah have started legal proceedings. They're requesting an evaluation of your mental capacity. They're alleging you're a danger to yourself. I felt a pit in my stomach. They can do that? They can try. But we're prepared. We have your psychological evaluation. We have the camera recordings. We have evidence that Rebecca entered your apartment without permission, that she stole items, that she has been slandering you. When we present all this to the judge, their case is going to fall apart. When is the hearing? In 2 weeks. But before that, I have something else to show you. She took out her laptop, opened a video file. It was a recording from my apartment cameras. From 3 days ago, when I was at the beach. On the screen, Rebecca appeared. But this time, she wasn't alone. She was with a man, tall, thin, with a briefcase. Who is that? I asked. Keep watching. In the video, Rebecca and the man walked through my apartment. She showed him every room. He took notes, took photos, as if he were appraising the property. He's a real estate agent, Olivia said. Rebecca is trying to sell your apartment. My apartment, the place I had lived for 10 years, the home I had built after my husband died. She was selling it behind my back. But she can't do that without my signature. She can't do it legally. But listen to what they're saying. She turned up the volume. Rebecca's voice was clear. The apartment is worth around $200,000. Maybe more. It's in a great location. My mother-in-law is going to be in a nursing home soon, so we need to sell it fast. The agent asked, Do you have the papers in order? Almost. We're in the process of getting the guardianship. Once we have that, we can proceed with the sale immediately. And she agrees to this? Rebecca laughed. She's not in a condition to agree or not anymore. That's why we need the guardianship. But don't worry, it'll all be legal. The video ended. I stared at the black screen. A nursing home. They wanted to put me in a nursing home, sell my apartment, take my money, erase me from my own life. There's more, Olivia said. She opened another file. This time, it was an audio recording. A phone call. Rebecca's voice speaking to someone. I already found the perfect nursing home. It costs $1,000 a month. With the money from the apartment sale, we can pay for years. And in the meantime, we get to keep the beach house. We can use it or sell it too. That's another $100,000, easy. The other voice, which sounded like her brother's, asked, And what if she resists? She can't resist. Once we have the guardianship, she has no say. And if she makes a fuss, It just confirms she's crazy. It's perfect. I closed my eyes. The pain in my chest was physical, real, as if something had broken inside. "When did you record this?" I asked. "2 days ago. The cameras caught her call when she was in your living room, talking calmly about how they're going to dispose of your life." I opened my eyes. The sadness was turning into something else, something cold and hard. "What else did the cameras catch?" Olivia looked at me seriously. "There's something else. And it's bad." She opened a third video, dated 1 week ago. Rebecca was in my kitchen, alone. She opened the cabinet where I kept my spices. She took a small vial from her purse. She emptied it into my sugar container. Then she mixed it with a spoon. She put the empty vial back in her purse, and she left. "What was that?" My voice sounded strange, distant. "We don't know. But we need to find out. Do you still have that sugar?" "I haven't been in the apartment for a week." "Good. We're going to go now. We're going to take a sample, and we're going to have it analyzed at a lab." We went immediately. We entered my apartment with gloves. Olivia took out a sealed bag. She opened the sugar container. With a clean spoon, she took a sample. She sealed it. "I'm taking this to a private lab. We'll know what it is in 48 hours. Those 48 hours were the longest of my life. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I just thought about that vial, about Rebecca mixing something in my sugar, about all the times I had coffee with sugar in the past few weeks, about the dizziness, the confusion. When Olivia called with the results, I already knew they would be bad. It was a sedative, benzodiazepines in high doses, enough to cause disorientation, dizziness, short-term memory problems. If you had kept consuming it, it would have eventually caused symptoms that looked just like dementia. I sat down slowly. She was poisoning me. Yes, and we have the video evidence. Rose, this isn't just financial manipulation anymore. This is attempted physical harm. This is criminal. 2 days after discovering the poison, I was at the beach house when the alert came. 5 o'clock in the morning. The phone vibrated against the table. "Leo, the security guard. Your daughter-in-law is here with some men. She says she's the new owner and is going to take the furniture." I opened the camera app. There she was, Rebecca Tierra, standing in my building's lobby with 3 big men, moving company uniforms, and a truck parked outside. "Don't stop him, Leo. Let her in. She's going to find a surprise." I hung up and immediately called Olivia. She answered on the second ring, her voice alert. "Rose, what's wrong?" "Rebecca is in my building. She's here to take my furniture, with men and a truck." "Perfect. Don't do anything. The cameras are recording everything. I'm calling the police right now. Give me your apartment address. Breaking and entering in progress." "What if they take something before they arrive?" "Even better. More charges. Just stay calm." "This is exactly what we needed." She hung up. I sat on the bed, my heart pounding, watching my phone screen. I watched as Rebecca talked to Leo. How he, following my instructions, asked her to sign the log with her full name and ID. How she did it without hesitation, convinced she had every right. I watched them get in the elevator, go up, floor by floor, arrive at the 10th, walk down the hallway to my door. Rebecca took a key from her purse, the old key, which no longer worked. She put it in the lock, turned. It didn't work. She tried again. Nothing. I saw her curse. One of the men asked something. She checked her purse, took out another key, probably a copy she had made. It didn't work either. "Wait here," she told the men. She took out her phone, called someone. From the movement of her lips, I could read her saying Elijah's name. She waited. The call went to voicemail. She called again. Same thing. I saw her take a deep breath, put the phone away, stare at the door with determination. Then she bent down and took something else from her purse. A thin card. She tried to jimmy the lock. "This is illegal," one of the men said. "Ma'am, if you don't have a key, we can't go in. I have a right to be in here. This is my property now. My mother-in-law signed it over. Do you have papers to prove it?" Rebecca pulled a crumpled paper from her purse. She flashed it at them. "Here. power of attorney. All legal. The man looked at it more closely. This isn't signed by the owner. Yes, it is. Her signature is right there. Ma'am, I've been in the moving business for 15 years. I know a fake signature when I see one. This isn't real. Rebecca snatched the paper back. Look, I'll pay you double if you help me get in. I just need to get a few things. Quickly. The men looked at each other. One of them shook his head. No. This isn't right. We're leaving. I'll pay you $3,000. In cash. Right now. $3,000. To help her rob me. The men hesitated. But finally, two of them nodded. The third one stepped back. I don't want any trouble. He walked toward the elevator. Rebecca and the two remaining men began to force the door. One of them took out a tool. He started working on the lock. My phone vibrated. A text from Olivia. Police are on the way. ETA 5 minutes. 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, everything would change. The door gave way. It opened. Rebecca went in first. She turned on the lights, and the two men followed her. That sofa first, Rebecca ordered, pointing to my leather sofa I had bought 3 years ago. And that table. Those vases. Everything that's worth anything. The men started to work. They lifted the sofa, moved it toward the door. The cameras captured every movement from 3 different angles. Rebecca went to my bedroom. I watched her open my closet, check my jewelry box again. She took more things. Necklaces, bracelets, earrings. All gifts from my late husband. All with more sentimental than monetary value. But to her, they were just objects to sell. She went back to the living room, took out her phone, made another call. Yeah, I'm inside. I had to force the door, but I'm in. We're taking things out now. Pause. She was listening. No, she's not here. She's at the beach. By the time she finds out, we'll have everything sold. Another pause. Then a laugh. I told you this would work. The old woman is too stupid to protect herself properly. The old woman. Stupid. She kept talking. With what's in here, we can easily make 20,000, and that's not counting what comes next. Once the judge approves the guardianship, we'll have access to everything. The apartment, the beach house, the bank accounts, everything. The person on the other end said something. Rebecca laughed again. What's she going to do? Call the police? She has no proof of anything, and if she does, it'll just confirm that she's crazy. Paranoid. Exactly what we need for the incapacity case. A long pause. Then her voice changed. It became colder. Look, I already tried with the tea, but she stopped drinking it. And then I tried with the sugar. I put in enough sedative to keep her confused for weeks. But that didn't work either because she's barely been in the apartment. So we have to do this by force. Take what we can now and fight for the rest later. My hand tightened on the phone. She was confessing. Everything. Poisoning. Theft. Conspiracy. And the cameras were recording every word. One of the men appeared at the entrance. Ma'am, this is taking too long. Someone could call the police. Relax. No one's going to call. Just get what's left and let's go. But then I heard something else. Sirens. Distant at first, then closer. The cameras didn't have exterior audio, but I could see Rebecca tense up, how she went to the window, how she looked down and her face went pale. No, 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 no. She ran to the men. Leave everything. Let's go. Now. But it was too late. The hallway cameras showed the exact moment the elevator doors opened and 4 police officers came out. In uniform, hands on their weapons, approaching my open door. Police, nobody move. I saw Rebecca try to run for another exit. How one of the officers stopped her. How he pushed her against the wall. How he put the handcuffs on her. Let me go. You don't understand. I have a right to be here. This apartment is mine. Ma'am, you're under arrest for breaking and entering. No, no, call my husband. He'll explain. His mother gave me permission. The owner of the apartment, Mrs. Rose, filed a complaint. We have a warrant for your arrest. The 2 men were also handcuffed. One of them was yelling that he just worked for the moving company, that he didn't know anything. The other was quiet, head down. I watched them take Rebecca out of my apartment, how she screamed, fought, insisted on her innocence. How the neighbors came out of their apartments, watching, whispering. My phone rang. Olivia, did you see it? Everything. The recordings are already being sent to the DA's office. We don't just have breaking and entering. We have attempted theft, document forgery, and most importantly, we have her confession about the poisoning. Rose, this is a solid criminal case. I was silent for a moment. Processing. After months of manipulation, of feeling invisible, of doubting myself, there was finally justice. And now what? Now Rebecca is going to spend the night at the police station. Tomorrow she has a bail hearing. We're going to present all the evidence. The recordings, the lab analysis of the sugar, everything. The DA is going to ask for her to be denied bail because she's a danger. And Elijah? Olivia sighed. That's the hard part. Elijah doesn't appear in any of the recordings doing anything illegal. Rebecca acted alone. We can prove she planned everything, that she entered without permission, that she poisoned the sugar. But Elijah, we don't have proof that he knew. He had to have known. Maybe, but legally, we need proof. And for now, we don't have it. I hung up. I sat on the bed, watching the sunrise through the window. The sky was painting itself orange and pink. The sea was calm. My phone vibrated again. A message. From Elijah. Mom, please. I need to talk to you. Rebecca's been arrested. I don't understand what's happening. Please call me. I looked at the message for a long time. My son. The man I had raised. The man who had chosen a criminal over his own mother. I didn't answer. Not yet. The bail hearing was 3 days later. Olivia insisted that I be present. They need to see you. They need to see you're not a confused old woman like Rebecca wants them to believe. They need to see a strong, coherent woman who knows exactly what was done to her. I dressed carefully that morning. A gray pantsuit, white blouse, closed-toe shoes. Nothing flashy, just professional. Dignified. Claire came with me. She sat beside me in the courtroom, squeezing my hand. When they brought Rebecca in, I almost didn't recognize her. No makeup, her hair unkempt, wearing an orange prison jumpsuit. She looked small, vulnerable, but when her eyes met mine, I saw the same coldness as always. Elijah was there too, in the back row. He looked destroyed. Red eyes, wrinkled clothes, as if he hadn't slept in days. He looked at me with a pleading expression. I looked away. The judge entered. A woman in her 50s. A serious expression. She reviewed the documents in silence. Then she spoke. Miss Rebecca Tierra, you are charged with breaking and entering, attempted theft, document forgery, and attempted poisoning. How do you plead? Rebecca's lawyer, a young man in a cheap suit, stood up. Not guilty, Your Honor. My client had a right to be in that apartment. Her mother-in-law suffers from dementia and had given her verbal permission. The judge looked at him skeptically. Do you have proof of this verbal permission? Not at this time. But, then it's not relevant. The judge turned to the prosecutor. Does the prosecution have evidence? The prosecutor, an older man with years of experience, stood up. Yes, Your Honor. We have video and audio recordings of the defendant entering Mrs. Rose's apartment without authorization. We have recordings of the defendant confessing to adulterating food with sedatives. We have lab analysis confirming the presence of benzodiazepines in the victim's sugar. And we have witnesses who confirm the defendant forced entry with the help of third parties. Rebecca leaned toward her lawyer, whispering furiously. He shook his head. Your Honor. The prosecutor continued. Miss Tierra represents a clear danger to the victim. For months, she has been trying to make her appear mentally incapacitated to take her properties. She went so far as to poison her. If she is granted bail, there is a risk she will try to contact the victim or destroy additional evidence. The judge looked at Rebecca. Anything to add, Miss Tierra? Rebecca stood up. Her voice was trembling. Your Honor, this is a horrible misunderstanding. I love my mother-in-law. Everything I did was to help her. She's confused. She doesn't understand what she's saying. The recordings are quite clear, the judge said dryly. Those recordings are taken out of context. I was joking on the phone. I never poisoned anything. The lab is wrong. The judge reviewed more papers. It says here, you also initiated legal proceedings to obtain guardianship over Mrs. Rose, alleging mental incapacity. Is that correct? Yes, because I was worried about her. Because I love her. But Mrs. Rose voluntarily submitted to a full psychological evaluation with Dr. Julian Hayes, who determined she is in full command of her mental faculties. No signs of dementia, no signs of confusion. How do you explain that? Rebecca stammered. The doctor must be mistaken. Or she fooled him. My mother-in-law is very manipulative when she wants to be. To hear that, after everything, calling me manipulative, when she was the one who had planned to rob me, poison me, lock me in a nursing home. The judge closed the folder. I've heard enough. Bail is denied. Miss Tierra will remain in custody until trial. Given the circumstances and the severity of the charges, especially the attempted poisoning, I find that she represents a danger to the victim and to society. Rebecca screamed, No! This isn't fair. Elijah, do something. Elijah stood up. Your Honor, please. My wife wouldn't do this. There has to be a mistake. The judge looked at him. You are the victim's son? Yes. Did you know about your wife's actions? Elijah hesitated. That hesitation condemned him. She told me my mother needed help, that she was confused. I just wanted to protect her. Protect her by forging documents and trying to steal her properties? No, I never. The DA will determine your level of involvement in this. For now, I suggest you hire a good lawyer. They took Rebecca away, screaming, crying, blaming. First, she blamed me, then Elijah, then the system. She never blamed herself. We left the courtroom. In the hallway, Elijah caught up to me. Mom, wait, please. I stopped. I turned. I looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time in weeks. Did you know? I asked simply. What? About the poison. About the plans to sell my apartment. About the nursing home. Did you know? Elijah shook his head, but his eyes wouldn't meet mine. She told me you were sick, that you needed help. I believed her. You believed her over me. Your wife of a few months over your mother, who raised you alone for 13 years. I didn't know it would go this far. You have to believe me. You didn't know? Elijah, how many times did I tell you something was wrong? How many times did I tell you I felt sick after visiting you? How many times did I try to tell you Rebecca wasn't who she said she was? And every time, you called me paranoid. You told me I was exaggerating. You made me doubt my own reality. His voice broke. I'm sorry. You're sorry. The anger I had been holding back for months finally came out. I almost ended up in a nursing home. Elijah, your wife poisoned me. She made me feel crazy. She planned to steal everything I have. And you helped her. Maybe not directly, but your silence, your denial, your decision to believe her and not me, that was helping her too. Mom, please. She's my wife. I have to support her. Those words. Like a final blow. Then support her. Visit her in jail. Pay for her lawyer. Stay by her side while she faces criminal charges. But don't ask me to understand. Don't ask me to forgive. Because I had to make a choice too. And I chose to protect myself. I chose to believe in myself when no one else did. So, what? I'm not your son anymore? You'll always be my son. But that doesn't mean I have to accept how you treated me. That doesn't mean everything goes back to the way it was. Because it can't. Not after this. Claire took my arm. Rose, let's go. I looked at Elijah one last time. I saw the boy he had been, the young man I had raised, the man he had become. And I realized I had failed at some point. Not in raising him, not in loving him, but in teaching him that love doesn't mean sacrificing your dignity. That family can't ask you to erase yourself. If you ever understand what you did, I told him, if you ever truly comprehend the damage you caused, then we can talk. But until that day, I need distance. I turned and walked away. In the car, Claire drove in silence for a while. Then she spoke. You did the right thing. It doesn't feel like the right thing. It never does at first. But in time, you'll see it was necessary. That night, alone at the beach house, I sat on the terrace looking at the sea. My phone rang. A message from Olivia. The DA is proceeding with all charges against Rebecca. The trial will be in 3 months. Your testimony will be critical. Are you ready? I looked at the message. 3 months. 3 months of waiting, of remembering, of reliving it all, but also 3 months of healing, of rebuilding, of learning to be myself again. I replied, I'm ready. And I was, because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid. I had clarity, I had strength, and I had something Rebecca could never take from me. I had my truth. The trial came 3 months later. During that time, I lived peacefully at the beach house. Claire came to visit me every weekend. My friends from the walking group called often, sent me messages of support, photos of their lives. Sharon sent me a video of her granddaughter dancing. Tanya shared healthy recipes, small gestures that reminded me I wasn't alone. I went back to the gym. I resumed my yoga classes. I cut my hair shorter, a change I had wanted to make for a long time but never dared. I took selfies with Claire at the salon and posted them on my WhatsApp. I felt alive again, free. Elijah tried to call me several times during those months. I didn't answer. I wasn't ready. Maybe I never would be. And I had to accept that possibility. The day of the trial, I arrived early. I wore a light blue dress, simple but elegant. Olivia was waiting for me at the courthouse entrance. Ready? She asked. Ready. The courtroom was full. People I didn't know. Press. Apparently, the case had attracted attention. A story about an older woman defending herself against a manipulative daughter-in-law resonated with many. Rebecca entered with her lawyer. She looked different, thinner, her hair shorter, but her eyes were still the same. Cold, calculating. The trial lasted 2 weeks. They presented evidence after evidence. The camera recordings were played in the courtroom. I saw the jury members react when they heard Rebecca confess to the poisoning. I saw their faces of disgust when they watched her going through my drawers, stealing my things, planning my confinement. The lab analysis of the sugar was presented. The doctor who analyzed it testified that the amounts of sedative found were enough to cause severe confusion, short-term memory loss, disorientation, symptoms that could easily be mistaken for dementia. Dr. Julian Hayes, the forensic psychologist, testified about my evaluation. He explained in detail that I was completely competent, that there were no signs of cognitive decline, that I was an intelligent and articulate woman in full control of her mental faculties. Leo, the security guard, testified about the morning Rebecca arrived with the men. He confirmed she had claimed to be the new owner, that she had tried to take my belongings. The movers who accompanied her also testified. One of them, the one who refused to participate, explained that Rebecca had offered them $3,000 to help her force the entry, that she had shown them false documents. And finally, it was my turn. I took the stand. I swore to tell the truth. I sat in front of a room full of strangers who now knew the most intimate details of my life. The prosecutor asked me questions about my relationship with Elijah, about how I met Rebecca, about the changes I noticed, about the dizziness, about the manipulation, about the fear. I spoke in a clear, firm voice, without crying, without being dramatic, just the truth. She made me doubt myself, I said at one point. She made me feel like I was losing my mind, that my age had made me incapable. And the worst part is, I almost believed her. I almost accepted that maybe I was confused, that maybe I did need someone else to make decisions for me. But then you realized something important? The prosecutor asked. That being 60 years old doesn't make me incompetent. That being a widow doesn't make me vulnerable. That living alone doesn't make me weak. I am a woman who worked her whole life, who raised a son alone, who bought her own properties with her own money, and no one has the right to take that away from me. No one has the right to make me feel less than what I am. I saw several women in the audience nod. I saw tears in some eyes. Rebecca's lawyer tried to discredit me during cross-examination. He asked about my age, about whether I took medication, about whether I sometimes forgot things, but every question had a clear answer. I didn't take medication. I didn't forget things. And my age was not a disease. After 2 weeks, the jury deliberated. 3 hours later, they returned with the verdict. Guilty. On all counts. Rebecca screamed. Her lawyer tried to calm her, but there was nothing to be done. The evidence had been overwhelming. The sentencing came a week later. 5 years in prison for breaking and entering, theft, and document forgery. 3 additional years for attempted poisoning. 8 years in total. When the judge delivered the sentence, I felt something strange. It wasn't joy, it wasn't satisfaction, it was closure. It was the confirmation that my truth mattered, that defending my dignity had been worth it. I left the courthouse with Olivia and Claire. Outside, there were cameras, reporters. Several asked me for statements. Olivia spoke for me, saying we were satisfied with the outcome, that we hoped this case would serve as an example. But one reporter approached me directly. "Mrs. Rose, do you have anything to say to other women who might be going through similar situations?" I looked at the camera. I thought of all the women who had written to me during the trial. Older women who felt invisible in their own families, who doubted themselves, who accepted mistreatment because they believed it was their duty as mothers, as grandmothers. "Yes," I said. "If something doesn't feel right, trust your instinct. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter if people tell you you're exaggerating or that you're paranoid. You know your life. You know your mind. And you have the right to protect yourself. You have the right to say no. You have the right to set boundaries, even with family, especially with family." That night, at the beach house, I sat on the terrace with a glass of wine. The sea was calm. The sky was full of stars. My phone vibrated. A message from Elijah. "Mom, I saw the verdict. You were right about everything. I don't know how to apologize. I don't know if you'll ever be able to forgive me. But I need you to know that I am sorry. For everything. For not listening to you. For choosing wrong. For making you suffer. I'm starting the divorce. I don't want to have anything to do with someone capable of hurting you. I love you. I've always loved you. And if you ever want to talk, I'll be here." I read the message several times. I felt something soften in my chest. It wasn't forgiveness yet. But maybe, with time, it could be. I didn't reply that night. But I saved the message. The following months were about rebuilding. I sold the city apartment. Too many dark memories there. I bought a smaller, more modern one, near the gym and my friends. A new place for a new chapter. I traveled. To Spain, where my niece welcomed me with open arms. To Argentina, which I had always wanted to see. To places I had put off for years, because there was always something more important to do. I signed up for painting classes. I discovered I liked it. I wasn't good, but it didn't matter. It was mine. My time, my passion. Claire and I started a small business together. Accounting consultancy for older women who needed help with their finances. There was a real need. Many women who had never handled money, who depended on children or relatives who felt lost. We helped them. We taught them. We gave them tools to be independent. A year after the trial, Elijah and I met for coffee. It was awkward at first, but we talked. Really talked. He about his therapy. About how he was learning to recognize manipulation. About his divorce process. Me about my new life, my travels, my business. We didn't go back to what we were before. That relationship had died. But we were building something new. Something based on mutual respect. On clear boundaries. On honesty. One afternoon, 2 years after everything, I was at the salon with Claire. We were getting our nails done, laughing about something silly, when my phone vibrated. A message from my niece in Spain, with a photo of her newborn baby. Claire looked at me. "Everything okay?" I smiled. "Yes, everything is fine." And it was. Finally. Because I had learned the most important lesson of my life. Taking care of others is beautiful. But taking care of yourself isn't selfishness. It's survival. It's dignity. It's self-love. For so many years, I had taken care of everyone. Of my husband when he was sick. Of Elijah as he grew. Of whoever needed me. But finally, After 62 years of life, I was the one deciding who to take care of. And I chose myself. And that choice saved my life.